everyone, it's us, the Goobers
Oh
from
my
War
God.
Crimes.
We're just goofing.
We're just goofing about, boys. Hope everyone's having a good evening or a good morning, wherever you are. We've got topic. Wait, just make sure we are live. Just making sure. Oh yeah, we are.
we are.
We do have a cool topic today, though, because we're going to talk about something that was pretty damn obvious to most people who are in the Warhammer spaces. If you can't do it correctly once, you can try again. Not really, because they did it pretty well the first time, though. But it's Necron Lords, and we're also doing a bit of spicy Tomb King Lords as well. People might kind of start to notice if you're only like a Warhammer 40k fan or 30k fan. There was a world that existed before GW decided to throw literal horse crap at it and ruin it.
And then
And
he
so-
ever chosen all over the place.
The fact that it's called The World That Was is still upsetting in pain. But yeah, in Warhammer Fantasy, there was Tomb Kings before we had Tomb. No, there was Necron Lords.
before we had Necrons.
There was Necrons at home before we had Necrons. No, this is so hard because they're exactly the same thing.
The Necrons were very, after their
Naughty boys.
retcon, were very much inspired by the Tomb Kings.
Yes, but I think so. We're going to be discussing both of like kind of the best, like basically all. We're going to discuss all of the characters that kind of. I guess you could probably see some inspired other ones, whereas others are wholly unique. And we'll be getting into some of those juicy lore tidbits. You probably might see some themes pop up. They'd be like, "Oh, that looks familiar," like copying someone else's homework. But before that, though, I think Colin, we have the question of the week
We do.
this week. But what I'm
excited.
raring. I'm excited
Yeah,
because
the
you
last-
definitely said there's some spice.
Yeah. The last one was, hashtag secret, and it was just what are some secrets in Warhammer, some of them, we got some pretty good ones. One of them, lit me up a little bit.
Do you feel personally attacked?
I do, and then there was two small extra things I wanted to throw on top of that, both related to the topic of lighting me up, because holy shit, man. We'll go with the first one I grabbed, Lollipop Knight 2. Hashtag secrets. There actually truly never was a second nor an 11th Legion of the Adeptus Astartes. The Emperor just can't count. When
Nice.
Kilman, the crazed account of them all, had the balls to call him on it, the Emperor injected vague memories of a purge into the Primarch's minds. He figured
Damn.
maybe it would scare his sons into better compliance, too. That'd be the funniest
Nice.
thing if they revealed that's what happens. Like, they never existed. It was just the Emperor gaslighting everyone.
Gaslight because he was embarrassed as well at the end of the day. Damn.
At Huntsman7274, hashtag secret, the Inquisition doesn't want you to know this, but Exterminatus doesn't exist. Planets just do that sometimes. That was a real tweet thread where someone was like, "Yeah, nukes aren't real."
Oh, why?
Someone replied, "But Japan just did that."
It just does that when no one's looking.
Oh.
And then the last one, starting the topic of getting on my ass, is Heir of the Redeemer 2828, hashtag secrets. Marathi once met Colin at her newest fling school reunion. Sources say she was disgusted, intrigued, and overall confused.
Oh my god.
Oh, is that your worst nightmare?
Holy cow.
Jesus.
It hurts.
Funny.
It hurts especially because it's so like this person knows you.
It's a true Colin fan.
Oh man.
And then just one of the two extra things I wanted to throw in was Winter 8109. Luther kind of was the Dark Souls 2 of the Dark Angel. So he was the best Dark Angel, easy sweep.
No, he was the rushed out.
No
you know,
div.
Although,
No.
someone who's literally just killed the Bed of Chaos yesterday, I'm coming around to Dark Souls 2 being actually pretty good.
Let's fucking
it's
go.
not. It's not. Dark Souls. We're not gonna. We've already for people listening. We've already done a live stream about a tier list of every single Dark Souls boss fight. So if you want to go to see how we all felt about Dark Souls 2, you can go to that one. It's on our channel.
And then
But you guys, okay?
the other quick thing, was someone, I will name no names. Nothing about them except they told me that I look like the Chicken Man from Toy Story 2.
Oh my
I
gosh.
was like, no, I did not need
No.
Oh my gosh.
It's not even the guy who like does the really satisfying repair job as well.
It's the chicken guy.
It's
The facial
It's
hair.
just like
Oh,
you.
man.
that fucking killed me. It was really
That's
funny
awesome.
though. I got that message. I was like, holy shit.
Honestly, how does that make you feel?
I started laughing when I got that message. It's like, holy shit, I just got fucking executed.
Holy
That is
shit,
good
dude, you
stuff.
killed him.
Can I just point out
Oh,
that Eli's sitting there laughing all about it in his little like YouTube pimp jacket.
Yeah.
I got-
Show us.
got
Look at
this
that. He's got.
for free.
back
They just
row.
sent it to you. I don't know.
We haven't got one. It's bullshit.
Colin's not got his pimp jacket.
Yeah,
Might
where's
just be
mine?
from shorts. Oh,
Oh,
man.
that's- oh man, people.
Chicken guy from Toy Story.
DJ Beats, leave Colin alone, okay?
What's he doing now?
Slander.
We appreciate DJ Beats. He's
the
always
poll,
in the
the
chat.
poll is in the way.
Mhm.
No,
Let's
no.
go.
Oh,
People need to
man.
type in what the rest of us look like, but please be kind.
Or don't.
No, if I'm getting heat like that, you
Pretty
guys are
funny,
on the
yeah.
chopping block too. Fuck you.
Yeah.
Good luck.
I've already had discount Mr. Beast, and I don't like. The thing is, I'm okay with that. Like that's good enough for me.
You
I
got
think-
Mr. Beast. I got the fucking Toy Story chicken guy.
We do
Or
look
like-
similar, but he's a little bit chubbier. He's a little bit
Oh,
like
man.
chubbier in the
Yeah.
cheeks.
All you can
I've-
get from this is just MF Doom, apparently.
Yeah, true. I've been called the Lucky Charms guy many times. So, I mean, short and red
Uh,
hair, so what can you
All my
do?
cheeks already hurt.
We're speaking of that though. We do have another question of the week. Andy, do you remember what the question of the
Yes.
week was? Yes.
So this one is #immortal. What would you do with immortality in the Warhammer universe? Ooh, and we're going to say both fantasy and 40k?
Sure.
Why not?
Yeah.
As
Yeah,
well.
why not?
Pick,
Why not?
pick a universe and decide, which one you're going to be immortal in.
Hmm.
Just not end
On-
times. That's
the
not, that's
best-
not allowed.
The best idea is just to run to the webway and don't. I mean, I'd say
Set
that,
up
but then
a-
Zinch set up like a tent in the webway or something. But Zinch would get you eventually.
Nah, the clown man would keep you safe.
Is it technically true to say that you'd be immortal if you were trapped in Trazin's Tesseract labyrinths or in
very
his museum?
technically.
I guess. Yeah.
You can't do much, but you're alive, I guess.
Do you ever perceive, like, does he ever perceive, well, if you're trapped in that, do you perceive time flowing or not?
I think he can if he lets you. Like, there's,
I'm-
I'm pretty sure there's a
Oh,
mechanic, like a
God.
tech priest who asked for that because he just wanted to like run computations and shit in peace.
There was
Trace
also the Black Legion guys in the Hammer and Bolter episode who
yeah.
were in one, and they just repeat. They go to this planet and they go, "We're going to steal this artifact from the Necrons." And every time Trazin's like, "You can leave whenever you want. You just have to choose not to invade." And they never do. So they just live in a repeating loop against the Drukhari in this little cube forever. You're like, oh, it's sad, but it's the Black Legion, so who cares?
We will be talking more about him later, though. But I think Eli, we're gonna get straight on in there because we're gonna talk about perhaps some of the fanciest, smanciest, what the true absolute chads of just any Xenos faction. Although that could be argued because we have Xenos scum-loving Eldar fans here. But it's Necron Lord, Eli. Take it away.
Yeah, baby. No, the Necrons are the best. They're the best Xenos. They own the galaxy, rightful rulers, as they
Yeah,
should
all
be.
right, bozo.
I'm not gonna lie. I was reading through like half of the Nemesis, Xandric, and Oberon short story, and I had like 5 pages of notes, so I decided to stop. So this is a Xandric and Oberon episode as much as it is Necron Lords episodes, but they're the best Necron Lords, so you can't complain too much.
Just a quick foray before we
Mhm.
start. There are some Necron lords we're going to mention today that, to our heart's utter disgust, they've removed from the codex. If I
Yeah,
do
it's
believe.
very sad. They still have lore tidbits in the codex, though. Like in the first few pages, they're there. I looked, but no rules. And
So
no
there-
laws.
these
Just
are
to rub
some-
salt into the wound.
Yeah. So if some people listening, if you there are probably some Necron lords you probably never heard about if you're a recent person who just started playing 10th edition or you're recent to Warhammer lore. There are some, I mean, arguably probably more interesting characters we're going to discuss who, again, GW apparently just doesn't want to update the goddamn model for. So
Oh, yeah, maybe next
we're gonna-
edition they'll come back, but who knows?
oh, pain. But we're gonna get into it though.
Yeah. All right. Well. Oh, Colin's gonna die.
Colin's gonna die.
Pardon me.
Donate to the chat so you can get a new pancreas.
Fucking make that the reason.
No, I'm joking.
Oh, man. All right. Well, we're gonna start at the head of the totem pole, other than the Silent King, because he just showed up. But we're gonna start with Imhotep the Stormlord, the most epic guy in all the galaxy, who, in my opinion, is the best general in the whole galaxy. No diff, Ultramarines. Sorry, bros. But Imhotep has recently risen in I think it was in the 40th millennium, upon the crown world of Mandragora, only to find his dynasty, the Sautek dynasty, engulfed in a civil war. He was awoken by an ambitious noble, hoping to use the Stormlord's legendary prowess, but Imhotep had no time for games and slew the noble immediately, like the scrub he was. He then mustered his forces and swiftly ended the civil war, and he has since ravaged the galaxy. Believe he's carved an empire, something like he's gained like something like 80 tomb worlds, but I know Andy was telling me that he found a much larger number. I don't remember what the number was though. What
I
Andy
think
told
it's
me. I
like
couldn't
he's
find
got
it.
the tomb worlds, but he's also conquered like loads of human worlds. And he's just like, I got hundreds of them. They're just like fun. Say,
Yeah.
oh, I've killed everyone. That's mine now. All your resources.
So in
Big
like
whoops.
200 years, the guy has allegedly gotten more planets than years he's been fighting. So very successful. Obviously not Imperium numbers, but he's getting there. He's uniting the Necrons slowly but surely. Nemesis Zandrik calls them the taker of 1 trillion hands and master of 300,000 suns, which I assume is reference to the times of old before the Necrons went to sleep.
Goes hard.
Yeah.
I think my favorite tidbit is that even I think the Catan that it was mentioned back in the War in Heaven millions of years ago, even the Catan I think knew of him, which is like crazy considering Necrons were to them mindless slave robots.
Yeah.
So that's how dangerous he was.
He
made
was-
quite
the
the
thing
name
was-
of himself.
Back in the day, he wasn't like, he was a general. He was just like, I just like doing war because I'm good at it. He wasn't into the whole I want to rule. But then he came back and he's like, what are you all doing? This is stupid. Where's the
Yeah.
king? Oh, oh, fine, I'll do it. I'll do
Yeah.
it if no one else will.
I guess I should mention the Pharaon of the Sautek dynasty did not wake up, unfortunately. So everyone was squabbling and trying to gain the power while they could. So they actually stopped the resurrection protocols for all the other nobles.
Oh my god.
The
What?
Border Prince is coming with quite the take.
Oh, I'm missing the chat. It's not showing up on my phone.
The Stormlord is a
Thank you, brother.
filthy regicide and should have remembered his place. Holy
Jeez. Oh man, I see.
Did
it
not
now.
think I'd
Like
be hearing
king takers.
Imhotep slander today.
Come on. Imhotep's a G. He deserves everything he gets. But essentially, they were squabbling for power. Some guy woke up Imhotep because he thought that Imhotep would help him get the power, but then Imhotep just took the armies and killed everyone, basically. And then got the allegiance of all the others. But anyways, more about him. It said that his voice sounds as solar carrion tearing round a black hole. I thought that was a cool.
Who's heard
it's hard
that
to,
before?
yeah, it's hard to imagine what that is, but Necrons have, I guess.
That's how
It
cool
would be like the
is.
equivalent of someone saying, that sounds exactly like shoving a human through a penny-sized hole. And you go, how the hell would you know?
I mean, when he's been,
So-
yeah, I don't know, but he has defeated every grand strategist that has come against him, with a nice emphasis on Mr. Helbrecht. Take the L, Imperial Bros. Sorry.
Cut off his hand.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
His mind is a machine of incomprehensible logic that can process amounts of information that would likely leave even a Primarch's brain melted. That's what I like to think, at least. It's as if you took the world's greatest supercomputer and you improved it by 10, and you gave it sentience and a hatred for all the galaxy's life, and then gave it billions of undying warriors and a galactic empire. And I think that's a good way to sum up how dangerous the Stormlord is. I think he's
Does he?
What?
Does
Let's
he?
go ahead, on.
Does he hate all life? I always thought he was kind of like he just wanted like to conquer them rather than explicitly like kill everything.
I think he's
Uh,
not well in other ways.
well,
if
it's-
you guys are gonna go into it.
Basically, all the Necrons hate life except for like Trazen and like a couple other ones. But no, it's in the Codex. It even says that he won't rest, or he doesn't see it as Necron victory until every living being in the galaxy is dead.
All right,
So-
fair
Yeah.
enough. That's yeah,
Doesn't-
that's
And
Doesn't he
he's
have a
not-
slightly complicated relationship with that just because of his certain illness that we're going to get into? Because he doesn't see other people the right.
Oh, that's the wrong. That's the
correct
wrong
way.
guy.
That's-
How
that's-
it's
that's
Oh,
it's
no.
Sandrick.
or
Oh,
yes,
I
it
thought
does.
You were
Am
scaring me.
I-
I thought I
Yeah.
missed something.
Am-
I don't have notes
am
on
I-
this. But
am I correct in also thinking that Imhotep does not agree with the Silent King about he doesn't want them to be flesh and blood again? He's like, nah, Skelly boys are cool.
yeah, I believe
Stay as
so.
we are.
There is a weird divide in the Necrons where some of them want to go back to the time of flesh, and others don't. But most of them just
When,
hate flesh in general. It's the perspectives vary so drastically depending on what author is writing about them, so it's kind of hard to follow
I mean,
sometimes. But
They are also, like a civilization. They're not all going to be,
yeah,
have the same viewpoints.
but overall, all Necrons, even the ones who want to like go back to the time of flesh, they still hate all the other living beings because they're not even really sentient to them. They're just rats and vermin and insects, right? But we
By
do
the
have
way,
a
We, I
donation.
was going to say we got a donation. Do you want to read it out, Eli?
Thank you, Ludi McShooty, for the $5.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Thank you.
When will we get a emoji that my phone can't show tier list for? Yeah, wait, which god most likely not to call you back after sex? Triple S tier is a certain Dommy Mommy.
Jesus.
All right. It's a good question. The Emperor definitely doesn't call you back, surely. Just like
Because
use and
you're like-
abuse and then gone, right?
You're basically smushed into the wall at that point.
Look, it doesn't matter if
Right.
Marathi doesn't call me back. I'm ending it because my life is peaked after that. It's
In
all
fact, Colin would
downhill.
prefer it that way.
Yeah.
I feel like the Omnisci would just go like error report 404 and that'd be it. Oh, didn't even send me a
It'd
text.
just be awkward with the Omnisire or like the machine gun.
Jeez.
All that oil.
For the jeez. Sorry.
We got to move
God.
on, or I am
Yeah,
going to
yeah, yeah,
demonetize this podcast.
Oh man. Tom Warren asked or says that you probably wouldn't want to go back to super cancer either. And their goal is to live lives again and have souls. Basically, they wouldn't want the cancer stuff, but they are soulless, and immortality is a curse, and that's what everyone always seems to find out in stories, right? So their lives all kind of suck, but they're doing okay, most of them.
Is it Old Law? Is it Xandric then? Because I thought Imhotep was the one who he still perceives, like his mind is broken and he still perceives everyone as like living beings.
No, that is
No,
And
that's
when he
Xandric.
duels, like he thinks he's dueling like real people.
Yeah, that's still Xandric, I think, because he's like,
I
oh,
keep
I'm still in
getting
the
confused.
war in heaven. You're like, yeah.
It's like
Night, time to go to bed.
he's like like Clint Eastwood in that film where he's playing the old guy who's like kind of a bit of a badass. and
Gran
he's like,
Torino.
it's maybe, yeah. And he's like, it's still the Korean War or something. Like, it's just
Get
not,
off my
it's not
lawn.
quite.
Jeez. Okay. Moving on though, because we do have a lot to cover today.
We got that to go through.
The only downside of Mr. Imhotep is his pride, which is a weird thing for Necron. But I mean, they all have their weird quirks that are issues. But it leaves
Aren't
him.
orcs a downside as well?
Yeah, but that's not like his flaw. That his
It's
fatal
kind of a
flaw
funny
is
one,
pride.
isn't it?
But yeah,
But
I'll
he
talk
can't
about
fight
that.
orcs correctly. isn't
He
it,
can.
something?
It just takes
Yeah,
some
he gets
time.
completely undermined because he's like, this doesn't make any sense, and this should make sense.
That's still
if
the
it's
most
working."
amazing. Orcs just never disappoint, do they?
Truly. But he often mocks his opponents and makes them feel bad instead of outright killing them. Like the Helbrecht thing, he cuts off Helbrecht's hand and then kicks him off the bridge, and then I'll get you next time, and then he doesn't get him next time. Another Necron W.
Although he did blow up his flagship, so you're
Yes, he
like, yeah,
did.
screw you guys.
Yes, he did, but that wasn't a war. Yeah, he still lost the war. Whatever.
He had respawn. He had infinite respawns. It wasn't fair.
Yeah, from what I remember, Helbrecht basically beat the Stormlord down time and time again, but Imhotep
Yeah.
was just laughing at him because
He's
the
basically got like
Necrodermis just kept
the like
rebuilding.
gold tier like regen
Yeah.
surplus subscription, so it just like auto fixes, and you're like, for God's sake, stay dead. And he's just like,
So
he's
he
coming
has a
back again and again.
phylactery and a sempiternal weave, which are nice. But Mr. Imhotep wages dozens of campaigns at once, making complex counter moves on a distant planet while he launches a surgical strike on another. The only beings he finds absolutely frustrating, as we said, are the orcs and also chaos, for they often defy all logic and act in anarchy randomly. But even then, it only gives them a tiny bit of leeway, and he often can figure it out eventually and still beat them. We have another
he's
donation.
kind of-
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, from
Daily donation.
Maple Scaffolder. Thank you for the $5.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Keep it up, guys. My favorite Warhammer channel. Bless you. When are we gonna get beginner to expert Caiaphas Kane? Caiaphas Kane, sorry.
Whoa.
Love from Alberta, Canada. Oh, baby, I'm in Alberta, Canada. Nice.
Nice.
Also,
What do you call
love
them?
from Alberta,
Albertians or something?
Canada. Albertans, come on.
Albertis?
Albertans.
Albertians is close enough.
Couple of Berties.
Oh man, I originally
Berties.
thought that your message said beginner to expert Colin, and I thought that was quite funny.
We should do a beginner to expert Colin. Or a deep dive. The iceberg effect of Colin. Just get down to the level.
I mean, Caiaphas Kane's quite a big one. I
So
feel
this is
like
his
that would have to
illegal
be a
activity that
multi-part
he
one.
really doesn't want you to know about.
How many books are the Caiaphas Kane stuff?
A lot.
7?
No,
6,
they're-
7?
I think it's like around 7 or 8,
Hmm.
but there's a lot of side stories too. So.
Yeah. It's the Gotrek and Felix effect. Where like, oh, it's the funnest character. Oh, there's a million books.
Mhm.
Okay. But
So,
I
anyways,
did want to point out one thing with Emotech as well. One of his side projects is he wants to just get rid of the orcs. He's like, I don't like how they're winning. So he's like, his side project is like, I want to genocide the orcs because they're annoying and I shouldn't be losing. I'm a bad loser. So yeah,
I
that's his
can't
thing.
blame him. From what I could tell, though, I don't know if he's actually ever lost, other than when Helbrecht blew up his ship. But he got away, and it wasn't like an actual war. Apparently, the Space Wolves beat him. Whatever, take
Who
that as you
cares?
will. I just read that. It was like one sentence, so I'm not sure. I would need to read the actual book. But I mean, to be fair, the more you fight the Space Marines, the less and less protection you will have from their plot armor over time. So
Eventually,
how
the
it
new
is.
armor your character plot armor wears off, and then it has to fight the Space Marine plot armor.
yeah, and then you.
I'm just waiting for Helbrecht Primaris to like get like round 2, bitch. It's like, oh no, he's bigger. Oh no.
Primaris Cato Sicarius just
Uh-oh.
about to elbow drop
Pearls
your
of
lore
Tarnshard
and
at him
ruin
to
it.
destroy him.
Oh man! All right. Well, he's called the Storm Lord for the ability for him to call the dark and terrible storms that go all around him and his forces, and the enemies within who are lucky are struck with the green arcane lightning and atomized in an instant. But the less lucky guys, who maybe sometimes even leave the swarm, are infected with the blood swarm nanoscarabs, which nuzzle their way into their flesh and send signals to attract flayed ones, who then come and tear them to shreds.
Sorry, DJ beat with that.
God, what now?
Imhotep got killed. Imhotep
Come
got
on.
killed by a space wolf.
Don't
People
be,
called
don't be saying that.
princess.
Don't be saying that. Okay, we have
Oh,
2
brother.
donations. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank
Moody
you.
McShooty for the $5. Legitimate question: when's the Oniverse Inquisition? I want to see who's better at being a xenophobe, and if you do an iceberg on Mister No Slanesh would blush. Yeah, that would be cool.
No iceberg me.
The next one's very appropriate. You have to read out
We-
that one too.
I will. We do need to do a versus episode one of these days, and it's been a while. So, but Oniverse Inquisition was one of our OG ideas, I think. So, but Maple Scaffolder, thank you for the $10. Albertans for life. Please do be an expert of Colin. We will all love you guys for it. I.
Iceberg effect Alberta. Anyone in the
There's not much to it, buddy.
chat?
We have Banff though. Banff is real nice. People come from all around the world. I was gonna say galaxy, but to see Banff.
Banff.
Hmm?
Oh, and
What is
um,
Banff? The,
Banff?
It's a national
Like-
park.
the Bundesamt für Migration und Flüchtlinge. That's all I found.
It's
I thought Banff was
it's a-
badass MF.
Oh my gosh, it's a park. There's mountains. It's beautiful. We have a lot of beautiful mountain stuff.
I don't know
around
what
here.
Colin said, but it sounded like a hate crime.
It was German. It was German. So
Oh man. Hey, well, people. Yeah. Anyway, okay, whatever. We can talk. We can do deep.
Yeah, we
dive
have to keep
Alberta
going, keep
some
going,
other
keep
day.
going.
Oh man, he carries Mr. Imhotep again carries many powerful artifacts. The most important being the Staff of the Destroyer, and this staff has been passed down through generations. First held by the founder of the Sautek dynasty, and is always held by the Pharaoh. Can only fire after recharging for a long time, but when it does, even Terminators are, destroyed in front of Imhotep. Upon his hand rests the Gauntlet of Fire, fairly self explanatory. He has a phylactery and a sempiternal weave, something that a lot of nobles have, that renders them basically unkillable aside from orbital strike type crazy stuff. And if that wasn't enough, he also has a phase shifter, so when you shoot at him, he's not even there most of the time. Overall,
Pain.
in my opinion, he's perhaps the finest commander in the galaxy, and hopefully we can see him go up against other guys like Gilliman. That'd be really cool. Although maybe not, because as I said earlier, he's beat Space Marine plot armor a couple too many times, and Gilliman has the ultimate Space Marine armor. So it might be a good story, but he might just win. So
He's a
Truly
bit
the greatest of
frustrating
them all.
because I think technically he has the biggest Necron army ever.
yeah, he does.
Like
'cause
even the Silent King
the
doesn't have as
dynasty.
many forces as he does, and it's like, what are you doing, Stormlord? Where are you? Although someone did ask, is this the guy on the white scars? Is Master of the Hutton list? No, that's Zandrek. It's a different guy. But, yeah.
Zandrik's a G.
You
Zandrik
are-
is the G.
One final note: if you play him on the tabletop, you are legally required to play Bury the Light from Devil May Cry.
Oh, that's a good shout. That's a great
Oh
shout.
man, what are you guys' opinions on his new model? Because I don't really like it.
I think it's fine.
I think it's I think it has a problem with a lot of other more recent stuff where you see in like Age of Sigmar, they're willing to push the envelope a little bit more, whereas 40k is a little bit more safe. I did say they were trying to honor / recreate his older model in some capacity. I think it's fine. It could have been more. But it's fine.
I guess so.
I
Just, it
think
doesn't
that-
even look like his picture though. I don't.
I
don't
think
know
the
You
whether
see
trouble
how
with-
genuinely sad Eli is about this. He looks genuinely upset.
I think the
Oh.
trouble with like Necron models in general is because, like, at a glance, if you don't know who the character is, they all kind of merge into one. It's like they got the
Yeah.
green and the gold and the silver. They're all kind of like, unless you have a keen eye for it, you're like, who's this character compared to this character? It's like, oh, his head's slightly different shape. Like, at least with the Stormlord, not Stormlord, with Silent King, he's got that big bloody plinth thing he's standing on. You're like, oh, that's like a unique thing. But a lot of the time, it's a guy with a staff and it's spiky and he's got a big cape.
Yeah.
You know, it kind of looks like
Yeah.
that other guy who has a staff and a big cape. He's got lots of green. It's like, yeah,
But like before his old model, you could tell it's Imhotep, but now it kind of just looks like a big
Hmm.
Necron lord.
yeah.
Which
Like
I mean,
if-
yeah.
It's like if Space Marines didn't have different chapter colors. So like, yeah, this guy,
Yeah.
his armor is slightly
Yeah.
bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Is that
It's
a
a fairly
Marine's
good
malevolent
point,
or is that
yeah.
an Imperial fist?
Mm-hmm.
We'll find out when they charge at us.
I think it was like early Great Crusade. They didn't have all their armor painted, so they literally all were in grey armor. And then I guess that's how Necrons are really now. So could you imagine telling apart the Space Marine legions
You got
if they all had grey armor?
DJ Beast called me a chaos cultist. Oh no, that's probably Andy. I assume. Okay.
yes.
I am a big fan of chaos though. But anyways, I think I mean, who else could be as good as Imhotep at his job? Like, guy has supercomputer brain and the power of a star, powering his logic engines and stuff. Like, it's pretty hard to go on to go against. But some of his battles are so famous, which we talked about in the Necrons pod a long time ago. They're saying in idioms based off of his events for the Necron tier, such as "gone like the Kuvu," which people say after you clear your
Jesus.
plates, because the Kuvu dynasty was utterly and just completely destroyed mercilessly by Imhotep to the point where there was just absolutely nothing left. So when you eat all your food real fast and it's clear, you say "gone," you finish that like the Kuvu, basically. In the War of Heaven, like you said, the Catan knew who he was, but even more, the immortal god beings that were the old ones were afraid of Imhotep. So the actual gods feeling fear over a single dude. It's like saying the Chaos gods are afraid of Cato Sicarius, which, I mean,
Which they are.
can't blame him, but they don't. But they don't
Starts
say
with a
that. But for a while, he spent a lot of his time uniting the Sautek dynasty, subduing upstarts and traitors, so well that the majority of them now just bend the knee without question because they don't want to get destroyed when Imhotep lands on their tomb world. With the reemergence of the Silent King, it is unsure how they will get along, because I've heard the Stormlord is not a fan of Zark.
No,
And so
it would be so
yeah.
cool if they did a civil war. That'd be
I
fun.
don't want them to do a
Ultramarines
civil
just being
war.
like, "What's going on
no
over
more,
there?"
No more
But the-
civil war.
But the
please.
only trouble is again, like I know it's their aesthetic, but there's so much green. It's like Anrakia is a
Oh,
blue
gosh.
Necron,
Yeah.
but then having like this the green Necrons versus the green Necrons. Like, who's
Yeah.
who?
I don't want them to have a civil war. The Necrons have enough of that stuff. And I mean, logically, it doesn't make much sense to further the dynasties. So if we're going off of the Bean, who's bases most of his decisions solely off of logic, I don't think he'd want to do a civil war.
I think it would be like the angle of like, oh, the Silent King, he's trying to make us weak with being flesh again. Oh, where's he been? He hasn't been doing his job for the last 10,000 years. I've been holding the fort. I didn't even want this job. I hate this guy.
I don't know. Knowing GW though, I feel like they'll just try to nerf the Xenos who are getting too strong. So they will have a civil war, and then it'll be bad times. But because ironically, attrition is what is the worst for the Necrons, because for every 1 million warriors that dies, one of them can't be recalled and is gone
Yeah.
forever. So
Although Zahir Martinez at Emotech is currently waging a civil war against Sarek in the recent Pariah Nexus Crusade book. So.
That's sad news. I have not read that.
The saddest part of the Necrons is that there'll never be new Necrons.
Yeah.
For them, as in like there's a
There's no
finite
children.
number of Necrons forever, and it's only gonna slowly decrease. Because again, like they all go. Some of them just. I mean, it's a spoiler for some of the story here, but some will eventually go mad. So
Yep.
Won't go into it too much though now.
Yeah. I mean, to be
So,
fair
later.
though, they are dwindling, yeah, but also it was like a Starfarer and Empire that was larger than the Imperium, and it's and where the Imperium they have soldiers, but they also have citizens. But the Necrons, every single citizen was made into a soldier, so they have like trillions and trillions of stuff, and like every Tomb World probably has billions of Necrons on it, type stuff like that. So, it's not bad. But
Not quite Eldar level desperation.
no, not even close. They're doing pretty well off, and maybe Illuminor Cesaris can crack the code again and get some pariahs, which would be nice. But I really have no idea. The only rival to the Stormlord though is Nemesis Zandrak, but he is loyal as can be, real nice guy, so Imhotep tolerates him. Moving on though is going to be Mr. Zandrak and Oberon, the two fellows on the screen right now. My favorite Necron characters by far. They are the best duo in 40k. Cannot be changed. My mind cannot be changed. And Zandrak is the Nemersor of Gadrim, a world under Sautek control. He is alongside Imhotep as one of the galaxy's greatest and most accomplished generals, as well as a grand historian. He even wrote some of the ancient manuals of war that the Necrontyr possessed. Impossibly intelligent and full of witful bravado, he is a pristine noble who commands his troops with perfect efficiency. Despite this, he is taken with the madness that we mentioned earlier. This madness is like no other amongst his kind, it seems. Although a lot of Necrons are crazy, his is it's not the worst crazy you could have, and it doesn't hinder his abilities to lead, thankfully. But he believes himself to be still living in the times of the Necrontyr, and he sees all the enemies as separatist dynasties. So whenever the Stormlord commands him to go to battle, he phrases the enemy as dynasties. Stubborn dynasties are Space Marines, reckless dynasties are Orcs, etc. Yet for all his lightheartedness, even Zandrak recognizes the Stormlord's authority, and it is said royal instinct goes deeper than any engrammatic damage. So he sobers up quite quick when speaking to Imhotep, because sometimes when he's at his little feasts, he convinces himself that he's drunk, so he acts drunk, which is pretty goofy.
It must be pretty wild though for him, where he's fighting an orc, and then this orc is like a massively muscular, beast thing, and he's like, that just looks like a really buff Necron or Necrontyr. Sorry,
bro, have you been going to the gym? Where did you get these? Jeez,
like he's going like, oh my god, who's the guy who's like was in the thing recently where he definitely wasn't natty or something like that. The guy who used to eat Liver King, he's
Oh,
like
yeah.
listening.
Although I
Jesus
can,
fighting Liver
I can
King.
just imagine Zondrek fighting
The
the tower and just being
Necrontyrs.
like, "What the hell is even that? Look at these thin, tiny Necrons. Ugh! Oh, what are they doing?"
It's not enough votes for Imhotep in the chat. Very sad. Oh man.
Yeah,
All
He's
right.
isn't,
disappointing us.
I-
Mhm.
Go ahead.
I was just something about Xandrek's condition. So if you were gonna mention more about that, I will not open my mouth. But
You can
I would
talk
say,
about it.
isn't it like it's also implied like he kind of like dementia and like he'll come and go, like it'll get stronger, like and then it'll go for a little bit.
Yeah, it
Like
seems to be.
I feel like I think I read a passage where he's like, even if we were, undead skeleton mummies, which I don't believe at all, and I think I read like in the passage he somehow winked, which impressive. Like, wouldn't it be
Yeah.
best just to make the most of it and enjoy this life of endless fun and
Yeah,
campaigning? Like it's
I-
like he does. It comes and goes.
How do you wink with no eyelids?
He
I don't,
he
Trazen
manages.
does it.
Yeah,
Although
the
Trace-
like flicker of the ocular whatever's they're called.
Well, I think Trazen actually can form his body into smiles and shit because he's a
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
creepy.
That's true, I think. But yeah, I think so. I haven't finished the short story because I had already written too many notes, so I just stopped.
I
But
know as
there-
well there's moments where he can also be in confidence with Oberon, like, "Oh, I'm not actually having moments of
Oh, yeah,
like
definitely.
dementia," but then it's like, "But are you? Are you just having a lucid moment?" And you're like, "Haha, I'm not really suffering," and
Yeah.
it's like
Deadless for the Star Gods. That's right, baby.
Alfarius moment 101.
Yeah, but he flies his ship, the carrying class tomb ship known as the Yama, which was his first successful campaign in the swamps of Yama. And this ship has very wonderful banqueting facilities. The ship is full of kitchens and sculleries, with Necron commoners actually who are meant to be tasters and cooks and the likes aimlessly wandering the halls with less consciousness than even warriors, which implies that warrior is not the only commoner class of Necron, which I found interesting. It's always hard to tell, but I don't know. Xandrek seems to have some semblance of art left in him as well, which is very rare in the Necrons, especially they all suck at music. That's their worst thing, I think. But his grand chamber contains a ring-shaped table that is inlaid with mosaics of Xandrek's most famous victories. In each image, the oculars of the troops gleam with precious stones seized from the world they had conquered. He likes drama and art very much. To a being that could appreciate such things, the chamber would have been near indescribably beautiful, it is said. And within this chamber, he celebrates victory, holding grand feasts of empty goblets and barren plates, but he thinks they're full of wine and food, of course. These times are often accompanied by his poetry, and he calls them epilogues, as all the lords that hate his guts to no end have to spitefully sit there while he recites his poetry for hours and hours and hours.
Oh my god.
But
Poetry slam, but it's worse.
Yeah. You know what it
Because
reminds
it's like
me
12 years long.
of? No, what it reminds me of? When Stalin was in charge of the Soviet Union, apparently he used to watch cowboy films with his advisors, and they had to stay up till like 4 a.m. and watch them with him. Because if they didn't, he
'Cause it
would be
was
like,
Stalin.
"Right,
Yeah.
you're going on the list. I'm getting you killed." So they had to be like, "Oh," and he'd be like, "Cowboy film." And they're like,
Is it Nemesis or Xander, isn't it? Is this basically the death of Stalin, but then he doesn't die?
Exactly. Yeah. It's Death of Stalin's.
That's a
do
great
that.
film,
Yeah,
by the
great
way.
I
Reminds me
film.
never
of-
got to see it.
I think Zhukov would really love Coca-Cola, but it was like the
Yeah.
symbol of American capitalist
American
decadence.
capitalist.
And,
Yeah, but he also
Soviets.
got a personal gift from, I think it was Eisenhower. He got like fish tackles from him as a gift, and he prized them for the rest of his life. He's like, he's a great man. I have
think-
these fish tackles.
I think he also gave him like clear Coke, so it's like it's not Coke, it's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
pure vodka. That's a very Russian.
Nice.
I do have a slight comment, which is, they're both very weird, but they're not related. But I think it's quite interesting that particularly for Necron tier and like Necrons, they didn't live long. Even like for people who are listening, they would die like a horrifically like cancerous death pretty early on in their lives. I think maybe they lived as long as humans. But
Yeah,
then
by
again,
the end
like,
of it, I think they lived for a while, but
Yeah,
compared to
they managed to
immortal
help.
beings, it's not
I want to
much.
say like 70, but then like
Yeah.
comparing humans now to like 40k humans, they've got rejuvenat, so they can live like hundreds of
Yeah.
years.
Yeah,
So
So
they
that's
didn't really
quite
die of old
rubbish
age.
for a Necron.
yeah, because
Fair to
like
say.
some were alive in the time of when the Silent King declared war on the old ones, and then they were still alive after the war and when they found the Catan, which must have
Yeah.
been like at least 100 years, right?
I
Obviously,
think the interesting part is that for basically a race that wouldn't live that long, it's interesting that they would even have time for things like art. So that's quite an interesting
Mm.
sort of character development part there.
Although every single
Uh,
piece is about death. It's just like, look at this
Yes.
Grim
Yeah.
Reaper Rider. He's like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's cool.
The
What
art-
did you draw last week?
Oh my god, another Grim
Tombstone.
Reaper! How unique! Like
the art was pretty much only to further like royalty and show exuberance and that stuff. I
oh,
would
my
say.
my other comment, which was my favorite part, is that there are some Necron. They had like Necron lords, and so in his like courtroom, he'd have the ones like Master of War, Master of Armory, or something. And there's still sometimes they have like Master of Grain.
Yeah.
for a race
Yeah.
that doesn't eat.
from their
So-
from their old stuff.
I know, but so there's probably like some of the lords who hate him in that chamber
Oh
of
yeah,
like
all of them
I'm the
hate
master of-
Xandric.
I'm like the master of pet grooming or something, and I'm
Yeah,
even though we have no pets anymore, but like that, oh my god, they would like hate him so much. Like I don't need to be here.
I'm the master of pedicures. We don't have nails anymore. Yeah, my job's easy.
Well, Colin, what were you gonna say?
Good question.
All right, fair.
I don't know.
Sad.
What I was just thinking was, I don't know. Unfortunately, any of the Necron lords who hate him have to get past a certain someone.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Yes, they do. Which we'll talk about soon. But yeah, all the lords hate him, and they think that they should be the rightful rulers. And every time he goes out in campaign, they hope that it's the last one, that he doesn't come back. So it's just salt in the wound that they have to then sit through hours of poetry and stuff. But they can speed up their chrono sense at least, so that it goes faster. But Mr. Vargard Oberon obviously cannot speed up his sense because he has to be fully aware. So he has enjoyed millions of hours, it said, of talking to Xandric.
Andy, we saw that in the chat. There's summon the monolith. Was it?
Yeah,
I put that
Dennett,
there.
the best. Dennett is the best character. He's a hero. Rip Dennett. Oh,
Was it a Twice Dead King? People, we 100% recommend reading that book.
so good. I just did a small
so
spoiler.
good.
Sorry. Don't worry about it. Sorry, I was in the chat. Oh yeah. Sorry. Far worse than the lords that have to sit through this stuff are the enemy generals that he takes captive and then brings to these feasts.
Oh my
Because
God.
it's honorable to take the enemy, dynast, the enemy general, captive instead of killing them until their ransom is paid, and treating them to a feast after a good battle. This usually includes imperial generals who have soiled themselves with fear, with metallic ghouls speaking all around them in an incomprehensible language. In the short story, the one who was with them just dies out of fear. He just expires from being too scared, and his heart fails.
Jesus
that's fun.
Christ.
But he does take captives, which no other Necrons ever do. I think there is a story with like a White Scar and some lady.
Yeah, the master of the hunt, Corsaro Khan, gets captured, and then he tries to escape. He has a scrap with Oberon with the help from the Eldar Illic Night Spear.
Ooh,
And then
he's cheap.
Zandrake's like, I like this guy. You can go. And he's like, what? He's like, you can go now. And he's like, I'm going to put your name in my record of the hunt, and I'll be back. He's like, yeah, it's fine.
Because you had like a dinner with schmucks type event with this guy.
Oh man, but Xandric I think is definitely the most unique and the most he has the most personality of all the Necron lords, as he's one of the only ones who ever really seems to be expressing any joy and real happiness. When he meets up with an old friend whose previous beasts had been made into Canoptics, the Canoptics bound towards Xandric, and he falls to the ground laughing and roughhousing them, which is something
Aw.
not a single Necron noble would ever do. They would rather die than like be seen doing something like that. So he's still pretty happy. I think he's living out of all the
Yeah.
Necrons. He's probably the happiest guy. which
There
isn't
was
too
like
bad.
a nice passage in one of the Twice Dead King books where it's when he's a Necrontyr and he's just like, there was a guy called Zandrek and he was just being like a bit
Yeah,
sarcastic and
he's a
silly
goofball.
and he's just there like grinning ear to ear with Oberon just sat next to him, and all the Necrons like, I fucking hate that guy. Just said like, ha, 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 ha. You
They're
have
all
a
just
lovely smile,
jealous.
my friend. Like, what a clown.
Does he have a
Little did
model,
they know.
or did he ever have a
Yeah,
model?
yeah, he's dabbing. He's the dabbing guy.
Yeah, he's got the
Yeah.
dab model.
Oh,
Yeah, he was in
He's that
9th
guy.
edition. He's been here since 5th edition, and now he's just freaking gone for no
Ugh.
reason. But whatever. Maybe he'll get a new model. I don't know.
Mhm.
But
Oh,
gone but not
pain.
forgotten. But he's extremely honorable as well. Did you just say something, Colin?
I just said rip.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Rip,
He's
rip, rip.
yeah. Xandric's probably also the most honorable Necron Lord, along with guys like Anarch here. But he will abstain from things like bombing runs and using death marks because that's not in like the codes of
Yeah.
honorable combat for the Necrons, which is pretty awesome if you ask me. He also ironically sees it as poor sport to field soulless machines on the field of battle. He made a comment when the Admech brought some robots to come fight him, and he was not very pleased about that. Obviously, he is a soulless machine, but he doesn't know that, so it's okay. He often speaks to his lumbering Vargard, Oberyn, yet expects little to no answers usually. Oberyn is more just there to listen and be someone to speak to as Xandrek reminisces and pores over his thoughts and strategy. Like I said,
He's a
millions
good
of hours.
listener.
Yeah, he does speak sometimes though. He speaks a lot more than I would expect him to. But oftentimes it seems as if he's speaking nonsense and that it is he's in some grand trance of the past, but only for Oberyn to realize the goofiness had true meaning all along. Along with this, when the times arise in war, when important moments come by, his authority and clarity are undeniable and implacable. We have another donation.
Yes, Colin, do you want to read this one out? I think it's
Oh, good.
mentioning you
that's,
here.
That's good. Eldritch Raid Old One, thank you for the 5.
Thank you, brother.
Colin,
Thank
would you
you.
go
Thank you.
through biotransfers if you kept your mind? Your pancreas still wouldn't work, but you no longer need one.
Dude,
Dude, if the Mechanicus was real, I would be bolting so much shit on my body you wouldn't be able to tell where led to what. I would absolutely
crowed
do
up.
that.
I don't
You're
know
you're
why. I
basically
just
waiting
had
for
like
the cyberpunk
Dude, call me
reality to
David
hit.
because it's high time I chrome the fuck up.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I just had
Wake up, samurai.
a reference to the Phantom Pain trailer, and just Colin going, "I can still feel my pancreas."
And
And
my
Need for
legs.
insulin.
It doesn't give me any insulin still.
Why do we
Oh,
suffer?
man.
Why do we
A
suffer?
little bit on that. I watched. I guess a completely off topic. I watched Hardcore Henry for the first time the other day. That was awesome. A new literally me character
Yeah.
dropped. If you guys haven't seen Hardcore Henry, you should. It's a goofball.
Oh,
movie.
who's
good
the who's a South African guy? Who's like the main? Isn't he the South African actor?
I-
Who's 'cause he's in quite a lot of films like that where it's like a bit. He's in what's the one with like
District 9?
District 9 is the one he's also
And
in. Like,
Chappie and stuff.
with the prawns, mate. The prawns.
Fucking prawns, yeah.
Freaking prawns in South
Oh,
Africa.
man. I felt a little nauseous after that movie though, from all the freaking first
Yeah,
person crazy stuff. But it was
Because it's
real
all
fun.
first person, it is a bit like, oh, it's
Yeah.
quite draining to watch.
Such a goofy movie. But anyways, back to Xandrek. At times, Oberon may almost be goaded into action and to leave the side of his master towards other threats that he perceives as maybe important. But Xandrek always seems to catch when these threats are feints made to bring his Vargard away, so potential assassins can slay the general. In the short story, the Imperial's kamikaze Elifter close to Xandrek's command barge, bringing with it some Admech robots. Oberon requests that he may dispatch the newly arrived foe, but Xandrek claims that the Lessers may deal with such unworthy foes, who are the soulless robots, of course. A small time after, an assassin appears, and Oberon realizes the attempted ploy, calling his liege's earlier remark another happy accident of nemesorial whimsy, but expecting quite the opposite. And at the end of the chapter, Xandrek chuckles and asks, "Glad you stayed," making it all the more apparent that his eccentricities are often laced with genius, and he's, like we said earlier, he's probably more aware than he puts off to be. There have been moments when the Nemesor faces reality, though, which we also said earlier, when he was battling a severed world, which is a tomb world that's whose nobles were not waking up. So the autonomous spirit woke up all the Necrons and kind of is met going by itself, but it's like animal instinct Necrons, kind of just to kill things. But he sees the Necrons that they've gone to fight against, and he sees them for what they are, and he says, "We're fighting us, but they're soulless." And he kind of freaks out, and Oberon scries into the ship because Xandrek stopped talking to him, and he sees Xandrek crying, he's weeping, which was like, sheesh. But
Jesus,
yeah,
that's tough.
yeah. On a lighter note, though, He does not realize he himself is a machine, and there are times when he relies on Oberon to do things like see through smoke, even though Xandrek's eyes could see through 1,000 different spectra. But he claims that the Vargar's eyes are better than his old eyes, and yeah, he loves drama and theatrics, saying, "What is Siege without a little theater?" and stuff like that. He's just a goofy guy. He's really fun. You can't not like him. But on to the greatest bodyguard in the whole galaxy. Sorry, Nork D Dog, you're a G, but I gotta give it to Oberon. Oberon is a hulking and menacing warrior who has served with Xandrek since his first campaign within the swamps of Yama after Xandrek graduated from the military academy and won his commission. The campaign was so successful that the Nemesaur was gifted Gidrum. This was in the time of Flesh, and Oberon was born a soldier and was a veteran at the time. He was one of the first to wake up on Gidrum after the long sleep and immediately went to learning about everything that had transpired so that he may inform his master of the last 60 million years. Very loyal servant. He has unmatched reflexes and instincts with a reaction time of 1,000th of a second, which is insane. He is patient and in control of his emotions, usually not giving into excitement or anticipation, never striking or leaping to action before the correct moment. And if he is ever elsewhere when his lord is in danger, his pristine and fancy arcane Ghostwalk mantle will get him right back to Xandrek in the blink of an eye. It was created by Dagon, Gidrum's greatest cryptech, and can tear through depths deeper than the interstices, which is what the Necrons use for normal translations. So when the interstices are jammed, he can still use the Ghostwalk mantle, which is nice. He's a extremely good duelist, an efficient general because he often orders and commands the troops for the smaller things, while Xandrek just overwatches the whole thing. And he's a skilled enough politician. He is well versed in political ploys and assassination attempts, as the other nobles constantly seek to rid themselves of Xandrek. In one instant, a Lord of Gidrum attempted to deploy his death marks as a suspicious location, so Oberon accidentally overloaded the transports and destroyed them. But just like that, stuff like that, he's quite wily for just a Varguard, and he takes a lot of lords by surprise with his sentience. But when he's necessary, he will also cover for the Nemesaur because he's charged to defend Xandrek's honor just as much as his physical form. He has been decorated 7 times by the Order of the Tombfly, whatever that is, and was gifted a sepulchral chamber larger than that of most minor lords. Along with this, he has his own personal phalanx of 10 Lich Guard who have survived thousands of campaigns. Many have been with him since Yama and were his friends. He still considers them as brothers. Most of them die, though, unfortunately. But he's not sad about it because he sees it as they get to rest, which is what every Necron really wants. And they, as Lich Guard, they're only barely sentient. So they only understand little things, and it's
They're
a very
just that
sad
meme,
existence.
the meme of the farmer going, "It's not much, but it's honest work."
Yeah.
That's the Lich Guard.
I did find out in the book though that when they're faced with, they were fighting Canoptics, and they're unworthy foes, so the Lich Guard discarded their weapons and just killed them with their hands and feet because they weren't worth like using their blades for, which was neat little tidbit.
It's not worth the durability damage that I'm going to have to repair later. I'll just pummel them now.
It would be dishonorable to use my weapon. Proceeds to beat the crap out of them with fists.
The Phalanx guys also purposely kept their like scars and dents and stuff instead of letting them repair as signs of kind of their identity, which is nice. Oberon was once a stricter guy, but he's seen so many like heresies and transgressions that he doesn't really care anymore. But he only cares for his master's safety. But every so often, he entertains madness and imagines what things would be like without his master were slain. Or if his master was slain, sorry. Not having to hear the same stories or parables for the 1,000th time, not having to pretend to enjoy invisible wine and drink. But without Xandrek, he is not Oberon, so his duty persists.
There's a big shout out to Mr. DJ Beast here for once again. Thank you for telling us that Colin did make the bed this time. So that's we appreciate that as well.
Oh, we got a freaking bald joke. Eli doesn't have a Widow's Peak; it's more of a Widow's Spire. Come on,
Jesus shit.
Man, delivering precious Necron lords though, and you do his hairline like that.
Oh
What's
my
wrong with
gosh.
you? Bro, you've come to it's the forehead gang over
You
here.
leave my boy alone. You leave him out of this.
Listen, this is a strong forehead group, okay? Back off.
Oh man, the camera angle definitely doesn't help, but that's funny. Oh my gosh, I miss. If you're watching this guy who used to comment bald jokes on like all my videos, I miss you. He would he would comment just like, man, it's like with the Gene Stealer calls video or post, he'd be like, that Gene Stealer has more hair than you or something like that, and like stuff like that. And I sent it to my friends and they freaking loved it.
I think that's what's called an abusive relationship. Eli.
We appreciate the
man.
mild abuse, but we don't run it that
Oh,
much.
I gotta go through reanimation protocols for that. Yeah, for real, dude. But anyways, back to Oberon. His skill with the blade is completely unmatched. And I've yet to see or hear anything. I've yet to hear of him lose any duels that he's fought. He's slain 7 Calidus assassins easily, which was pretty
Jeez.
baller. And it shows a still like his master. I think is rubbed off on him. He shows a display of dramaticism in the story, where the assassin is creeping closer, unaware of Oberon's being able to see her. She thinks he's undetected, but Oberon found her a long time ago. But he's responding to Xandrek's wonderings as the assassin's creeping closer to Xandrek, and he says, "Let them commit, my lord," he said, because Xandrek was asking Oberon what he thinks what they should do by the enemy forces. So he says, "Let them commit, my lord," in his doleful husk of a voice. "Let them feel victories within reach, then take everything from them." Then the assassin's head snapped around at the sound of Oberon's voice, and he exploded forwards, sweeping in a wide arc. Pretty epic. And while the assassin fight is going on, Xandrek is still pondering, not even seemingly aware of the battle, bringing up a rhyme in response to Oberon's previous answers. "Take a drubbing, let them advance, wait for the moment, seize your chance." And he then senses an imbalance and pins the Calidus to the ground, defeating her. Oberon can pick out things in combat that likely even Space Marines could not, even highly advanced machines, I assume, could not. He can spot the tiniest little imbalances and capitalize off of them in an instant with a speed unlike the rest of his race. He also knows many ancient blade techniques, demonstrating one known as the Spearfisher's Poise, which implies the Necrontyr had some form of blade traditions. More cool little history. He can slow his chronosense and maximize divination algorithms to fight like a god. His words, but only for a time, as it will burn away engrams and take away himself. In one moment in the story, along with the things mentioned earlier, he converts half his energy to mass and rockets through the teeming hordes of warriors to soar through the air, bellowing Xandrek's name and plunging his scythe into the enemy lord's chest. And that was pretty awesome.
I can
This
just imagine him
costs
going,
him-
Xandrak! Like, what the
Yeah.
hell is that? You're
Does
just
he
thing
literally do
barreling
a-
towards you. Like, what is that thing?
So he actually has like the ability to go, "I'm the Juggernaut, bitch," and just run in.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
he has a literal version of that.
Yes, he
Damn.
took half
Good
of
reference.
the energy from his core flux and he converted it into mass, which like pushed him forwards basically in momentum, which is pretty cool. We have a donation again from the Eldritch, the old great one. Thank you, my
Thank
friend.
you, brother. Thank you.
May I propose a trade deal? Eli gets Colin's hairline, and Colin gets his pancreas. Bro, I don't think I'm gaining much there, buddy.
No, come on. Take that
Oh,
deal. It's a good
no.
one.
Jesus.
Promise, bro. I'm good for it.
Oh man,
Maybe I
Andy
can
to
share
melt the
my
mask
hairline
to
a
the
bit.
face like
I got a
the
bit of
Antioch.
hair.
Sheesh.
There we go.
That'd be a scary
Use
Andy
that.
arc. Oh man, but doing that cost him the name of his father and his sense of taste, a small price to pay in his opinion. I could go on longer about these guys, but I decided that I should stop because we don't have all day and we have more Tomb Kings to talk about. So I will go through the other main guys, which is Anarchir, Trazen, Orkin, Caesarus, and then Hal will talk about Cesarek, the Silent King. And then Andy might have a little bit to say on Old Text if he's feeling like it, if we have time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Andy also knows about a bunch of weird little obscure guys, so he might. Yeah. But anyway, next we are going to talk about Anarchir the Traveler, my other favorite character, who was also yoinked from the Codex, even though his model was pretty awesome. It's very large.
I
and
drew
cool.
him.
And he's
There we go.
blue. He's freaking blue. You can't. Whatever. What can you do?
My friend just bought him before the Codex dropped because he
Ah.
wanted to play him against me, and then now he can't. So.
Feels bad. I mean, he's still.
I yeah.
I appreciate the picture, Andy.
And the
He
model
can-
doesn't
he
glue
can-
together very well either. I was like, ah.
he can still play with him. He just has to use the Legends rules, which is sad, but if you're just playing friendly games, you can still technically play, but it means that he won't be in the 11th edition codex unless he is given a new model. But he did have 2 like little tiny short story in the codex though, for like 2 pages, so that gives me some hope. But anyways, he's Anarkir the Traveler. He's Overlord of Pyria, which is in the Mephrit dynasty, and he has the sole divine cause of uniting the Necron dynasties to return them to their former glory. He has no care for politics or personal power, only for the betterment of his people. He is the greatest Necron noble to ever live, as in these, at least in these times, as he has sacrificed all luxury and gain just for his people. But other lords hate him and see him as a brigand, because Anarkir is constantly going to the aid of Tomb Worlds, awakening them and slaughtering any vermin that may be upon its surface. And after he does this, he demands a tithe from these forces, so that he may continue his great journey. These reinforcements are very necessary, as his troops have been battling for eons, literally, and need constant replenishment. Those who refuse, he simply takes from. And Anarkir is well versed in politics and extremely skilled in the courtly environment, so he can often negotiate what he needs. But he's a freaking G, dude. He has the ability to extend his mind into enemy machines and strangle the machine spirit, bending them to its will. And in this way, the enemy guns will often turn on their own forces, and chaos ensues. He is accompanied by his immortals, the Pyrian Eternals, who are ruthless warriors with thousands of years of experience. And despite their lack of higher consciousness and higher self, they are still hardened veterans, and they are loyal to the very end. In recent times, Anarkir has done a few baller things, like kill the Silver Skull's chapter master, do a little trolling. I did a little trolling to the Tau as well, because he destroyed a High Fleet who was about to invade a Tau colony, but that Tau colony happened to be on a Necron Tomb World. So he went down to the colony, and the Tau were rejoicing and like congratulating him and so excited, but then he just killed them all because like he doesn't care. And he later fought. Oh, sorry, we have another
Oh, another
donation. That's the word from Eldritch. Thank you, sir.
Thank
I
you,
know
brother.
I poke fun at y'all, but I love your guys' content. I hope you only get more success in the future. IDK Any Group is more chill than y'all. Oh, thank you.
Thank
We
you, brother.
appreciate it. We do.
We're all just here to chill out, relax. If you guys are listening away or painting and stuff like that, just paint one for the boys right now.
Yeah.
Paint it for the boys.
Paint one out
Yeah.
for the boys. That's a term.
Paint one out for the boys. Am I right?
There also seems to be a big battle that happened, which I would need to read about somewhere, where Trazen Orkin, Xandric, Stormlord, and Anarkir were all a part of it, and it was against the Laytok. At least I think the Stormlord and Xandric were there. Forces from Mandragora and Gidrim were there, so they probably were. But it was against the Laytok and some Exodites, and Anarkir uses Orkin to out Farseer the Farseer and mess with their prophecy, and ends up taking the W. And he's also worked with Caesarus before.
He's also
Moving
got the
on.
best skirt in all of the Necron line as well. His little model actually has like sort of like a skirting effect, so
Yeah.
I always thought he was a little bit of a nice kilt influence there,
Mhm.
but I don't think he probably sounds Scottish or anything like that.
He's cool. I miss him, bros.
It's a
You're
shame
going
they
for a
moved from the
travel
Codex
with
as
me.
well.
Come on, then. That's what he sounds like canonically.
Why do you think GW did remove like him and a lot of the lords
It's
from the
'cause
Codex? Though?
they want to make
Who
new
knows?
models, I guess, but because they're old models, so maybe like I really don't know.
Is it to do with streamlining 10th edition? They're like, we want to get rid of these weird characters and redo them completely because
Maybe
I feel like they were
Probably.
like, oh, we kind of want the Necrons to do one thing, and there's too much weird stuff, so we need to pull them back and rethink it.
Or
I
it
don't
may
know.
be like again, like they don't want to make because like for GW. In all fairness, there's so many characters and models in the line that getting round to make even like making new ones is quite difficult. So maybe perhaps pulling older ones that they can
Well,
really release like it's 11th
Yeah.
edition, and then you go, guess what comes with your codex? A new or revamped
Yeah,
thing
but
you're
I
missing.
do know there is the conspiracy theory that most of the new models they release they've had for like years and years. Someone told me that that's why the Striking Scorpions were so mid, because they probably made them like 5 years ago. But
I think
I
they're
don't know.
3 years ahead. They said, didn't they say like for the people who work in the modeling department, they make the model at least 3 years ahead of release. So then,
Jeez.
well, yeah, it makes sense because I remember I think it was Chapter Master Valrak at the time it was ages ago, and he was saying he had it was again like a rumor thing that there are going to be World Eaters will be coming to 9th edition at the end, and this was like early 9th, so they weren't even out. Like no one even said anything. And then again, like that was because they said they'd already made the sculpts for it ages ago, and obviously again there's been a faction release of World Eaters at the end of 9th. So I think they probably made all these models now. I wonder which ones they hopefully made already. And they'll be like, I just can't wait. Come on.
I don't know. It makes me sad though. But what can you do? Or they just don't want to make any more of the model, so they would just want to get rid of inventory and then.
Is it also a case of they've got these new models for like Emotech and stuff? They're like, we want you to buy this.
Yeah, that is.
We're going to get rid of the old stuff because we want you to play these at the tournament, so that more people go, that's a cool model, and they buy this rather than the weird blue guy.
I bought Imotech for my friend, who I'm gonna like paint up for him because he plays Necrons, and his dynasty are I think he's not playing a particular dynasty, but his like paint scheme is a nice like kind of properly nice gold, like a nice like, sort of subtly like red gold tint, and he has like orange highlights. And I'm gonna try and hopefully paint Imotech up, but it's delayed in shipping for so long because it's so hard to get an Imotech at the moment.
Dang.
Oh, pain. Oh my god, another dono.
Yeah, you can read.
That one's by Elliot Horps. Thank you, brother. He says, "Hey, Law Crimes. I won a box of heavy intercessors at a tournament, and I'm converted them into eradicators with melter and flame bits from the guard."
Nice.
I did the similar thing with eradicators. I needed more eradicators, but I didn't want to buy more models, so I just converted up and I just said, these are Raven Guard ones, so they're wearing Phobos armor, but you know, but they're eradicators 100%, I swear. That's a good choice there, though. But sorry, continue, Eli.
Yeah, that's right. Moving on swiftly now for the last three fellas. We have Trazen the Infinite, who I think is most people's favorite. He's the Grand Archivist of Solemnes.
And he's doing picture drawings for the audio listeners.
I've done all of them now.
And he's been drawing them on post-it notes if you're listening on like Spotify or anything like that.
And I think most of us know Trazen's story for the most part. And we are going to go over Infinite in the Divine in a future episode, so I'm not going to like go too into it. But Trazen is an eclectic, wacky, eccentric of the Necrons who's generally hated by all of them because he's such a weirdo, and he doesn't fit into the whole I don't know how to explain it.
Archetype.
Yeah, then he's not all obsessed with royalty and stuff like that. He's kind of like how Anarchy is, I guess, but a goofball instead of like a noble cause type of guy. But I mean, his cause is noble in his opinion. He holds galleries upon Solemnes that contain the galaxy's history, and he wishes to preserve the galaxy and all of its history. But I think some people say it's just because he's obsessed with having stuff. So I'll let you decide. But I just got the quick wiki list for what he has in his museum, and I'll read it off because might as well. So according to that, he has a Wraithbone Choir, the head of Sebastian Thor, the ossified husk of an enslaver, brother Castiel of the Blood Angels, one of the shrines that had contained the world spirit of Karnak. Oh, feels bad. Several regiments of Catachan jungle fighters, a device containing the entire Hive Fleet that launched the Tyranid invasion of the world of Eurus, which Trazen himself had sparked in an effort to add a Tyranid exhibit to his collection. Of course. Lieutenant Commander Sarantes of the Ultramarines Legion, his battle brothers, and several Contemptor pattern dreadnoughts from the time of the Horus Heresy, and Ademptus Custodes, several regiments of the Vestorian Firstborn. Bring those guys back to GW, please, I'm begging you. The lost regiments from Tanith, Astartes of the Salamanders chapter, the Last Lord, Castellan of Cadia, Ursarker Ecreed, never forget, Inquisitor Greyfax, I didn't know that he had her, perfect clone of the Primarch Fulgrim.
Dead.
An ancient
they're not going to do anything with that, by the way.
Nope,
they're not going to do anything with it.
I know they're not, and it's so painful. He is an
they're
ancient...
teasers.
Yeah, an ancient Eldari Canaanite warrior who fought in the War in Heaven. Pretty cool. A 12-meter tall Krork who also fought in the War in Heaven. And numerous ancient Necrontyr pots, smoking pipes, and walking sticks, including the one Trazen had used when he still had an organic body. Sorry, holy cow. We have a donation from Tom Warren. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
Nice to see you. What cause could be more noble than stealing everything cool that's ever existed?
Amen.
Fair.
We love him for it.
What's the
Nice
name for it?
one.
Is it something kleptic, isn't it? Or
Kleptomaniac?
kleptomaniac. When you-
Or the,
That's
you know,
what I
as
like
Belisarius School would say, abomination.
Yes, he
Yeah.
He
is.
says, I prefer
He's
a welcome
a
guest.
historian.
My
He's an
favorite thing about
archaeologist.
my favorite is basically Indiana Jones, but crippled and old, but in an immortal body.
Yep.
Yeah,
Although I
Hunchback
do
of
have-
Notre Dame with Indiana Jones.
I do have a favorite sort of fact about Trojan, which is that he doesn't really like the Imperium, but not for the reasons everyone thinks. It's because when the Imperium sort of conquered the galaxy, it basically made everything else Imperium. So all like the little diverse little pieces he could add to his museum all got basically colonialized into imperial stuff. So he's like, "Oh, you ruined my,
You've gentrified my galaxy. How
You-
dare
you
you?
It was-
gentrified
and,
my
like,
galaxy."
The opening of the Infinite Vine is like, God, they're so boring.
We got a pine cone
Yeah.
on screen, baby.
That's a traffic. What?
Pine
Pine cone?
Why'd you call that a pine cone?
It's a cone.
It's just pine
Alright.
cone.
Do you eat ice cream? You're like, man, that's a delicious pine cone I just had. What?
Is it like a
It's just
local
the
like
first,
nickname
first
for
word
it?
that came to mind. I don't know what to say.
It's like is it everyone? If anyone here is like from South Africa, don't they call traffic lights robots?
Do they?
I think they call they nickname them robots. Like watch out for the
Abominable
robots.
intelligence.
Like the abominable traffic light.
Jeez.
Nah,
Alright.
we will talk about Trojan a lot in the future when we get
Yeah.
to that
There's
video
still
'cause
a-
it's so good.
Still have a little bit on him. So we can talk about his war gear because it's pretty unique.
Oh yeah.
His
Mm.
greatest weapon is the Empathic Obliterator, and this relic dates back to the times of the Old Ones and has the potential for incredible destruction. It has the ability to destroy entire squads of infantry with a single blow, as the Obliterator uses otherworldly technology to send out psionic shockwaves, staying true to its name and obliterating any similar beings within the vicinity. In this way, he need only spend minimal energy and time to reduce droves of enemies to mush. His Time Splinter Cloak allows him to view the currents of time, making split decisions to weave through their currents and avoid attacks with ease. He stole it from someone, I don't remember who though. And the most terrifying weapon in his arsenal are that of the Mind Shackle Scarabs, as these little constructs will
Ugh.
burrow into the desired target's mind and take full control. Using these, Trazen can turn any he needs to his side so that they may assist him in his works. We'll talk about that in the future too, I'm sure. And he is known as the Infinite for his use of surrogate hosts, leaping his consciousness from one Necron to another and creating multiple bodies for such consciousness to travel. And in this way, he will likely never truly die. Next up is his best buddy rival, Orican, who is the Necron's greatest astromancer and chief seer. He is a cryptech of sublime skill who can read the signs of fate through great algorithmic casting and star reading. He is also a skilled chronomancer, able to reverse time, playing things over and over again as he enacts zodiacs until he gets it right. This also makes him almost impossible to pin down in combat as well, although he is not generally one to fight. He is less of a general and more of a wandering researcher, similar to most cryptechs, but his future sight does make him a very good commander, as he generally almost always knows what the commander is going to do next, and what the enemy is going to do. Sorry.
He's a
So he can
big
predict everything
nerd.
that the enemy is going to do. But regardless, he doesn't fight too often. He's a very relentless fellow, though. He'll keep trying for thousands of years, as we'll talk about
You know-
in Infinite and Divine.
You know what? When I think of the Necron Lords, I think of these two in particular. It's like you got like Emotech and Sarek. They're like the jocks and everything. And then Trazyn and Orican are like one's from the chess club and one's from the math club. Like they're both the nerds. They're like, oh, they're the guys. They're doing their own thing and they're just bickering because like I'm smarter than you are. And it's just like But that's why we
Yeah.
love them because they're funny.
Anthony says Orkin feels like an incel. I think that's funny. He does kind of.
Oh dear.
Eli said Pinecone, my fear and hunger brain got into overdrive. Oh man, but anyways, Orkin's ultimate goal is similar to Caesarus, is that he wishes to achieve a godlike form of pure energy that would rival that of the power of the Catan. And when the stars align and his divinations succeed, he may find this great power and become unstoppable for a time. He has predicted nearly every major event of the galaxy and was paramount in guiding the Necrons in the Great Sleep. And before this, though, he tried really hard to get them to not go into biotransference, and he told them that the Catan were going to betray them, and because he saw what was going to happen, but nobody believed him.
Only
was like
voice,
that.
only one to speak out against.
It was like that scene in Halo 4 when the guy's like, "Arrest this man! Arrest him!" And that was Orokin just going like, "No, don't do it."
Ugh.
Yep. I don't know what his rules are like on the tabletop. I meant to check because I have the codex, but I forgot to. Because back in the day in like 5th edition, you would roll a dice on all the turns, and if you got the right roll, he would achieve his like final form thing, and his stats would
Yeah.
be super big. But I'm not sure if they have something cool like that anymore. But
his new model is pretty cool as well. to
it
be
is.
fair.
It is
They
pretty.
did that
baller.
one justice, and he looks like utterly unique compared
Yes, he
to
does.
any other Necron
With
lord.
his big
so-
life
bigger.
preserver head.
Yeah.
his
Chuck him in
head
the water,
grows.
he'll float.
That is what I like about the Necrons, because they do have some individuality still amongst the nobles, at least. Generally, their personalities and how they lived transferred over to biotransference and kind of made them look how they look, which is cool.
Yeah, I mean, the three that stand out are obviously like Seras with big spindly legs. You've got Trazyn with his hunchback, and then you've got Orokin with his big head. It's just, I suppose for like a really good Necron design, you have to make it like over the top. Like we need to make him really obviously different, otherwise it's difficult to see the little details.
DJ Beast reminds me that the Infinite and the Divine book is half of it is just Orokin simping over the Cryptek lady.
Yep. The other half is him and Trazyn's sexless marriage.
Jeez.
They're both trying to
Oh,
go
man.
to like they're both basically trying to do a grave robbing. You know, Nefre's tomb, Nefre's tomb.
With the type of
Oh,
thing.
yeah, we got no spoilers, no spoilers.
But anyways, last on our list today is Illuminor Caesaris. And I have not actually watched Pariah Nexus, so if there's things that you guys want to add after this, feel free. I feel bad for not watching.
Yeah,
it,
he's
but-
actually in a official GW animation, so you can, if you're listening to this, you can go actually check him out on, well, obviously Warhammer Plus technically, but it's definitely reposted to YouTube for free.
I need to find those nice reposts. I've been lacking because it looks really cool. But anywho, Caesaris is the Necron's very own mad scientist. He's a complete and absolute genius, akin to other crazy guys like Fabius and Call. Probably more like Fabius, though, in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
As I mentioned a little bit earlier, his ultimate goal is to achieve a form similar to the Catan, as he has ever believed that his race has been on the path of ultimate evolution. He aided greatly in biotransference, making it possible with the great and terrible furnaces, as he believed it to be just another step on this ultimate journey. He is constantly researching, but unlike other Necrons, has no qualms with touching flesh. In fact, the large majority of his research is done on living beings. He wishes to unlock the secrets of life, so of course, dead things won't help much with that. So these poor fellas, these poor test subjects, are kept alive by the arcane technologies of the Necrons through literally unimaginable experiments. Like, I'm sure our worst nightmares couldn't even come close to what this freaking guy does.
Could you quickly explain the whole? Because he's the only one who will touch flesh. Can you explain why the others won't, Eli?
It's
Because they'll love this.
Yeah, well, amongst Necron royalty, it's seen as taboo generally, for one reason or another, because they just hate flesh, but also because they're scared of getting the Flayer curse. So if you touch flesh, it could, trigger thoughts like that. But it's mostly just like, don't touch the vermin flesh. That's disgusting. That's taboo. Like if you touch flesh as a Necron lord, the servant whose fault it was is put to death immediately. I don't.
Yeah,
Stuff like
it's a
that. I don't know
good-
if that was the answer you're looking for.
A
or not.
good
No, that's
parallel,
right, yeah.
a good parallel I think is good is when you were like 7 or 8 and you're like, ew, girls, don't touch girls. Ew, you get, it's like that's
have
how they treat
cooties.
flesh.
The flesh is unclean.
The flesh is grody.
The Necrons are probably more xenophobic. So they are more xenophobic than the Imperium for sure. I think because they see
And
every
that's
single
a high score.
I think they make the Imperium look like nice guys because like the Imperium will at least generally talk to like Tau and Eldar and work with them sometimes, but
Yeah.
the Necrons see everyone else as like unclean vermin who should all be genocided and destroyed and killed. So
That does remind me of the fact that it's a small part of the Infinite Divine, but it's just a very small segment of when the humans settle on one of the old Eldari worlds, and then Trazyn translates like the Eldari building that they've built around, and it's a sewer. It's like an Eldar sewer, and then they go, and he's like, literally, his whole thing like shivering, like, oh, that's disgusting. Because the idea of them like touching anything like waste or human or like even blood, they're like, legit, like, oh, yuck, you've touched flesh, scum.
Even in the Necron tier days, they hated plumbing and excrement and stuff. And that was what you
freak out about it.
Yeah, that's what you put to death.
Meanwhile, on Ultramar, they've got like the vinegar sponge on a stick. They're like, "What's the problem, guys?"
Oh man,
Yeah, it's the communal ultramarine, shit stick.
Yeah, and you know it's the ultra because it's got an Ultramar symbol on it.
But
the Ultramar sponge.
Oh man, maybe more on that another day, I guess. But I'll be making a big Necrons video soon. I feel like I know way too much about these guys, but anyways, back to the shout out to who?
Favorite line in the Infinite Divine: "You stupid bastard! You got us box seats to Baku."
So awesome! It's a good book. You should all read it. All the Necron books are good, honestly. Maybe the one with Cato Sicarius is pretty mid, but that's to be expected because we all know what happens when Cato Sicarius is there. Guy 1v1s a monolith and freaking wins, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Where was I? Was Mr.
Illuminator Xeris.
Yeah, the poor test subjects who are being kept alive through unimaginable experiments, which are like, for sure, I can guarantee they're worse than the stuff Fabius does, because at least you'll probably eventually die when you're with Fabius. But the people who are with Xeris, he keeps alive for quite a while. You could be in there for years, getting freaking amputated and worked on and stuff, and just horrible. But when their screams get too annoying, he'll just turn off his audio transducers and doesn't care. With the many secrets that his research has unlocked, he applies to his legions and other nobles' armies for a price, of course. This is blasphemy to an insane degree, but Xeris doesn't really care, and he often takes Xenos biology and integrates it into his armies. Not like putting eyeballs into Necron warriors and stuff, but like researching an eyeball and taking patterns and stuff from that, and then upgrading his guys to have similar patterns to the Xenos eyeball. Things like that. He's also said to create pariahs, which have been kind of retconned and messed around with, but they weren't like officially retconned. They still kind of are in the lore, sort of, but it's hard to tell. But pariahs were essentially, in the 3rd edition Necron stuff, human blanks who would then be put through biotransference. They would still have some of their organs, in their body, but they gave off the blank aura, which made them very strong because they had necrodermis bodies still as well. And rumors say that Xeris either planted the pariah gene in humanity, because some people think that the Necrons put the pariah gene in humanity so that when they wake up in 60 million years, they'll have a tool to use against the Eldar and against Psykers. Some people say that he tampered with the DNA and genes of the Calexis Assassin Temple, the Null guys. That is the right one, right? I think it is.
Think so.
Yeah, and he supposedly gave some of them like sleeper agent genes to eventually wake up and go to his tomb world, essentially. But he's also done the Pariah Nexus stuff, and that has Pariah in the name. So I don't really know what happened with all of it, but it's there. If anyone knows the particular lore, if there's anything important.
The work he's doing with the Pariah Nexuses, he's like trying to find a way to get them back into like fleshy bodies. So that's like Sarek's like, my man, I need you to work on your project to make us back into skin bags. And he's like, yeah, gotcha. Gonna have to capture some humans, do some experiments, and it's not going great. Pariah Nexus show is only like 3 episodes, so it's not very long. It's like an hour. He's doing some experiments. That's kind of it. There's like not any real plot to it. Well, there's no lore to it. I know they're doing another spin-off with Sarkhan, who's the salamander in the series, because he does a stare down with Xeris, and he's like, intriguing, you are a worthless human, lol. And he has this whole thing about like, he gets a death mark to try and assassinate him, and there's a point where he does like a parallel to like the afterlife and religion. He's like, he has like this head twitch. He's like, do not use such unscientific terms around me. You're like,
That's
all
where the
right,
meme's from.
edgy atheist. Here we go.
Nice. But yeah, that's the main Necron Lords. I don't know if I forgot anybody. I'm pretty sure I didn't. We can
Silent
holy
King?
cow from Anthony Fackenthal.
Oh my god,
Paying for college.
Anthony.
Thank you. Love you, brother. Holy cow. For $100.
Blimey, thank you.
As someone who just bought the Old World Tomb King box and
Yes.
also has Necrons, good taste.
Yeah.
I can't decide which of them is more petty. But then I remember the Bretonia
Alright.
episode and remember it's neither.
Ah,
Then in fact, Colin is the pettiest. Well, it's always a pleasure to catch y'all live. Thank you. Bless you, brother.
Thank you very much.
We
Thank
very
you,
much
Anthony.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you so
I'm
much.
glad this episode has become the let's all take pot shots at
Oh,
Colin.
yeah.
God, they've
Uh,
had to go at hairlines, faces,
Ugh.
organs that don't work 100%.
Oh, man.
Everyone's
Come
catching
on.
strays.
Oh, well, it's a good time. We very much appreciate it. You guys keep us fed and alive. So
Yes,
Ah,
thank you
yes.
so much.
what about
Alright.
the man himself?
Ah,
yeah,
that's- I
That's,
will take over for the
Sure
last
is,
little.
Sure is art.
Let me see my little
For
Zandric
reference.
and Oberon.
Andy has
Yeah.
done, for all your
Yeah,
listeners,
he-
he's drawn little pictures of all the
Huh?
Necron lords we've been talking about.
And
But-
Emotic giving the bird.
But having said that, though, we're going to speak about Zarek the Silent King. And unfortunately, as much as he's like technically the leader of all the Necrons, he doesn't actually have that much lore, which is kind of
Yeah.
annoying. Although he is a pretty sick tabletop model. And
It goes so cool.
it does. He got big throne go hard. And he's sort of around, but he doesn't, unfortunately, doesn't have quite as much personality as the rest of these boys. But his lore is essentially
he's
like he
quiet.
is. Yeah, he doesn't. Well, we're gonna get into that. Yeah. So he is Zarek of the Zarakin dynasty, perhaps the only one who has like one named after him. Or maybe not named after him, but named after his. Oh, he's named after the dynasty. We're not really sure. But he's also known as the Silent King because, as we probably might have all guessed, the Silent King is quite silent. He actually doesn't communicate with anyone he's talking to. He kind of whispers slightly to his Triarch Council, which you'll notice on his model, the ones who kind of sit like either side of him. They kind of like basically like the bitches of the throne. They sort of sit there and look intimidating, but they just have to do what he says. And Zarek is famous because, as much as in Necron history, a lot of like the Necron lords, the different dynasties would take over being a Silent King. And the last one would be Zarek himself, and he'd be the one who agreed to essentially the Cataan's deal of the biotransference, which again was a bit of a goof up because it kind of enslaved his people, murdered all of the Necron tier, and turned them into the Necrons. And so there's never going to be a new Necron, and they basically were enslaved to the Catan for the massive war in heaven where they fought the Old Ones, the Eldar, the Krork,
Lost.
probably some aliens that we've never
Hey.
heard of.
we won.
we represented in the end though, but it wasn't like the Super Bowl, so he couldn't keep coming back every year and trying again. You know, this is like one big old war, and unfortunately, it just went poorly. And he was given like the command protocol to. He basically was pretty much the slave master of all of the Necrons, and he basically couldn't fight against the Catan because they were so powerful. Eventually, the war in heaven did sort of reach a point where the old ones were basically defeated, and the Catan were starting to battle themselves. Thank you, Kegarak, I believe, who tricked them into fighting themselves and eating each other.
The first of
and-
many Eldar dubs.
The first
Yeah.
of many, the
We-
first of the million-year rule of Eldari after this. But this eventually triggered Zarek to go with like a plan he'd been working on forever. He'd asked and secretly in pacts with other like Necrons, he built machines and weapons that even to this day they will not touch. I think one of them is owned by Illuminator Sarek. What's his name? Sorry, Zarek? Not Zarek.
Cesaris.
Cesares. Cesarek and Cesares are basically. I was getting
Yeah,
confused.
Saras and Sarek.
Saras.
and-
Yeah, he gave him like a weapon where like it's like a map of the galaxy, but if he touches it, it basically interferes with the
that's
galaxy.
yeah, I can't remember which dynasty has that. Yeah, but it's just like if you just go
Even
boop, then that
even
sun
he
goes
won't
supernova.
mess with that, and even Zarek the Silent King says they used weapons that fundamentally broke the galaxy, or maybe that ruined the, possibly led to the creation of the Chaos Gods. Apparently, in recent lore was a thing, and they essentially broke the Katana shards. Then they were just basically stuck in a power vacuum, and he releases protocols, so he wasn't controlling them. But then the Eldari were basically on the rapid, climb up, because the Eldari could make more Eldari, whereas the Necrons were finite. So they went to the big sleep, which is famous in Necron lore, and Zarek didn't sleep though. Zarek basically had insomnia. He couldn't deal with the guilt. Different kind of insomnia.
He went on a very long gap year.
And I do believe this might be Colin's favorite fact is when he was he went to go travel outside of the galaxy. But Colin, what brought him back? I think you remember this tidbit?
I do.
Yes.
Would you like me to kind of take over
Yes.
for a moment here?
Yes.
Well, you
please
see, in his self-imposed exile, who just floating outside the Milky Way galaxy as one does, when he bumped into a little something known as the Tyranid hive fleets.
Cheeky.
So,
Ooh,
a
just
slight
something.
little traffic jam. And he came back with the most revelatory, piece of information the galaxy had ever seen. He came back to warn the galaxy that the Tyranids are, in fact, a problem. Something that truly
Slight understatement. Yeah.
no one had realized up to that point.
Yeah.
And,
While Emotech was like, I want to kill all the orcs because they're annoying, Sarek was just like, they're more than annoying. They're going to doom the entire galaxy.
I'd also like to shout out Tom Warren for the $2 donation. Funny message.
Oh, thank you, Tom.
He says Colin is my third favorite diabetic person.
Yo, who's on the 2 and 1?
I don't know who your
DJ
first two
Beast, Colin is my second favorite slot.
Yes.
ever.
I want to know who your first are for these.
I was on your Discord, Colin, and the amount of people who say slop is ridiculous.
It's because I make slop. I'm making the.
What can we say? It's a sloppy Discord. Anyway,
Sloppy Discord. Jesus. So Zarek is sort of the only thing that brought him back was the Tyranid threat, because the Tyranids are in a way quite similar, where like old Necron lore, they both sort of eradicate all life, but essentially I think what's brought Zarek back was the fact that they did the big sleep because they wanted the galaxy to heal, so then the Necrons could rule over it. But there's going to be no galaxy to rule if it's all been devoured and broken apart.
yeah,
by the
and not
Tyranids.
only that, if they want to go back to having like bodies, they need experiments. They need stuff to like harvest to be like let's do some stuff to see if we can actually become Necron tier again. If it's all been nommed by the Tyranids, like we're going to turn these in. No, I'm not going in that thing. That insect, bugs, it's not going to work.
In a weird way, they're sort of like rivals, which is quite interesting. But Zarek is only again, they don't see the Imperium as a threat, which is funny because or even Chaos as a threat, which they're very aware of Chaos existing in this time. But the Tyranids are the threat which Zarek actually feels is that could be a real problem. And interesting enough, there is a tidbit it's the only really time he showed up in any like proper written lore in like novel form or novellas or short stories, when he meets Dante of the Blood Angels. It's on a world where the Necrons and the Blood Angels are fighting, and then suddenly the Necrons stop, and the Blood Angels like in the middle of like the fight going, hey, yo, what? And they're like sworn by Necrons, and the Necrons just literally stop what they're doing and then just walk away. And they get invited to meet the Silent King. And Dante goes, I've heard a rumor of a Silent King, and I didn't even think it was real, but we might as well go see for ourselves, because we're, if it is a Silent King, we could possibly, the opportunity is just there. They can't say no. And bearing in mind, in this trip, Dante and the Blood Angels with him and the Rhino, I believe they're in, is filled with explosives, and the triggers they're holding in their own gauntlets, like a pressure gauntlet. Like it's one of those triggers where if they let go, it'll all go. Because they're thinking, we might as well take the opportunity to basically suicide ourselves with the Silent King. And then when Dante appears before the Silent King, he looks at the Silent King, who's like kind of sitting down, like crouched, kind of like not standing up like a regal ruler, but more like a sort of nomadic figure. He turns around and he's wearing a mask of Sanguinius on his face, but it's one where it's smiling, unlike Dante's death mask, which is Sanguinius looking sad. And the Blood Angels just go like imagine like there's like for them they're seeing a Xenos wear their father's face.
Yeah.
That's very much like someone going, basically literally like a demon wearing Jesus's like face. Well, you'd be like, so they're like,
this little thing I just put on, like, oi, take that off.
It's my best outfit. So what can I say? Yeah. So they were like, they were so far beyond disgusted, like they weren't angry anymore. Like you go far beyond anger where it's like, I'm not even pissed. I'm like, I don't even know what I should be feeling. But it's quite interesting because like Silent King Zarek goes up to him and basically whispers in his ear. He's like, "Hey, our mama Libby whispered in your ear." He's like sort of a little bit, sussy, and he's because again he doesn't speak out loud properly. He sort of whispers his intentions to Dante, and they basically say, "Yo, Tyranids are coming, bro. Want to team up? It was a mistake. We shouldn't have been fighting." And then Dante goes, "Fine, it's a good idea because it's an Imperial world." But actually, slowly the Necrons start evacuating their forces, and they let basically the Blood Angels take a lot of the brunt, but they still manage to beat the Tyranids off, not beat off the Tyranids. Beat the Tyranids.
Okay, all right.
Sorry, a bit of flub. But that's kind of his most recent appearance, and even I guess as I said, like prior Nexus, he's still trying to unite the dynasties, but not really as their all-powerful ruler, but more as a sort of rally crying figure to help fight a great threat. And the Imhotep is clearly proving to be a problem, and that's kind of the end of. It's a bit of a shame because Zarek doesn't have again. He's a bit more of a mysterious figure, kind of like how even the Emperor has
very
more
clandestine
like dialogue than this guy does, and the Emperor's meant to be like a distant figure, but that's kind of it on Zarek though. I do believe if there's anything else, I think that might be the last, unless Andy, you've got like a few minor ones you want to talk about.
I think there's only like a couple worth mentioning. There's basically this entire dynasty called the Subakar, which is in the Jericho Reach, which is where the Death Watch books are. There was this pharaoh known as Armontek, and he killed a Catan, and he was known as the Red Scythe, and he actually like killed it, and everyone was like, "Wow, that guy's cool." Everyone went to have their big nap. Everyone woke up, and for some reason, the pharaoh didn't wake up. And the Cryptips had a look in his brain. They're like, "Oh, there's some weird stuff going on in there." But he's super powerful. We're not going to like just end him, but we can't wake him up because his brain's a bit damaged. And so there's like a big power struggle going on within them. There's like Ahotep, not to be confused with Armontech, am I right? But like Ahotep is like
God forbid
the region below, and there's like a power struggle going on. And they're kind of cool, but they don't have much lore. I did a few videos on them, but they're literally like, there's like a destroyer lord who's pretty cool, who's just like, the guys with the hover pads for legs. He's like one of the relatives of the Red Scythe, and he went mental. And for like millennia, he woke up really like Ahotep plotted for him to wake up millennia earlier than they were supposed to. So he went insane, and he kind of plotted to be like, I'm going to make you wake up really early. I'm going to send you over here, and just so he could assume control. There's not really much more to say about them, but they're just kind of cool that like, oh, there's like a Necron who actually killed a Catan. Is he a model? No. Just a
bearing
guy.
in mind the last guy that did that created the destroyer or the Flayer virus, so that kind of didn't go so hot.
Bad track record. It's like, oh, you killed a Catan, but you're gonna inherit some bad stuff.
Just a minor oopsie. You'd work past it.
Yeah.
Give or take away chromosomes.
How many Necrons really have the flare? Like out of the whole, right?
Not many, but a lot of them say that it's the fate that'll take them all eventually. It's hard to know.
Yeah, but when you live forever, eventually something is going to go wrong. Really, I think murdering a Catan, some of you go a little bit goofy. This is a small price to pay.
Slight goof. Don't remember your entire identity.
And the Flayed ones themselves don't I don't know. They don't think they're goofy.
Servitors exist. And that is
Yeah.
for a much less good purpose than murdering an whole ass Catan. I don't want to. Oh,
Yeah.
then you lose your memory. Motherfucker, that dude got lobotomized.
Some servitors do remember as well. That's the horrific part.
That's
Although
even
the-
worse.
Although there are rumors that the Crimson Scythe actually wakes up sometimes and just does like he just like butchers like civilizations in the Jericho Reach and goes back to sleep, and it's like, what?
Huh.
That's weird.
Cool.
It's like you're not you and you're hungry. You're butcher a civilization.
What was
I think
that?
that's
Snickers advert.
yeah. I think
It's
that's
called
all we have
Snickers
about
over
the
there as well,
Necrons,
isn't it?
though. Snickers, yeah, we got Snickers.
Oh, thank God. Some things are like in North America are just not named the same. I'm kind of get. Was it is it Lay's chips?
Yeah.
We got those
They're not
got
called
that.
Lay's here.
What are they?
They're called Walkers.
Walkers.
I mean, that's.
You
I
think,
guess
I'm not
a little-
messing with you. They're actually
No,
called
I mean, I guess
Walkers.
that's a little
Yeah.
strange, but like, whatever.
Oh, Axe body spray is not called Axe here.
What is it called?
Lynx, like the animal.
Oh, that's even
Yeah,
trashier.
Slinky Links.
Oh my
Lynx?
gosh.
What?
Yeah, because you know,
Axes
like
are-
when I was younger, people would make reference in like TVs like, "Oh, you smell like Axe body spray." I'm thinking like, "What is Axe body spray?" And then I saw the thing, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that's just Lynx." And it's like, "Oh, because it's probably
Yeah,
something
like
else
Lynx
called
Africa
Axe."
is
Axe
like
or
the one everyone
Lynx
uses.
or whatever you call is already. They can call whatever they want. The only thing I can
Yeah.
ever associate it with is a high school locker room where some asshole
Yeah.
is spraying it all
I,
over the
I don't know. The main point is the Virgin Snickers versus the Chad Lion Bar. Let's just put that out
Whoa,
there.
that sounds pretty tasty.
Lion Bar is superior.
We'll have to see a few more of those things, but yeah, like the Lynx and the Walkers thing is still pretty in like living rent free in my brain. But speaking of not taking any or other things that live rent free in my brain, though, I think Colin, we're going to talk about something. Well, we had Necrons, but we had Necrons at home, I think, because we're going to talk about the OG Necrons, aren't we, Colin? The original, the copy
Indeed.
my homework from this is the original homework.
where they once came from, the Tomb Kings.
Tomb Kings.
I'll keep it relatively brief, especially because, as with a lot of Warhammer Fantasy factions, it's pretty easy to tell, at least what the basis of them is. The basis of the Tomb Kings is, of course, ancient Egypt. Very cool. Would you like me to just a quick clarification? Should I save all the comparisons between them for after the basics of the lore?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it for the end.
Yeah,
there.
I-
Let's just introduce because obviously some people who are listening maybe are not as familiar with Warhammer
Yeah.
Fantasy stuff. So
Thought that was the plan. Just wanted to clarify.
yeah,
The Tomb Kings were once, Warhammerified Egypt. They were all alive. They were people. They were civilization of humans. The earliest one, in fact, in Warhammer Fantasy, before the Empire, Bretonnia, Kislev, any of the others, there was the Tomb Kings. They were Bronze Age ish, but towards the end of their time as humans. Spoiler alert, upcoming for that one. They started. They had very limited access to guns from Cathay. I think they even had some balloons and stuff, like steamship kind of things. So they had some cool stuff. But overall, Bronze Age humans. They were initially very in touch with their gods. Then they weren't. Then they were, kind of on and off thing. And they ruled over, because if you look at the Warhammer Fantasy world, it's pretty clearly just like Earth. The
but squashed a bit.
Yeah, it's squashed a bit, then stretched back out.
It was Earth you dropped on the floor and then you had to quickly put it back together again.
We got
Especially-
a donation, sorry, from Zombie Eggplant for $10. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
brother.
Zombie.
Thank
Zombie
you.
Eggplant.
Thank
It's
you.
a good name. It's a good name.
But yeah, so they were they were chugging along, survived the incursions of chaos, the great catastrophe when chaos first entered the world by fighting alongside their gods to drive out all those nasty demons. And then their civilization went on for quite a few thousand years. They had obviously their golden ages, their not so golden ages. There were rulers, of course, like the one and only Setra the Imperishable, who decided that the entire planet belonged to him, and he made a pretty damn good showing at doing that. They, as time went on, started to realize
And it's another drawing here, but it's like a Tomb King with a chef hat.
I'm gonna
For the audio
assume that's a
listeners.
tomb guard, for Setcher would behead you for such insolence. Yeah, so eventually Setcher himself and others kind of realized death is going to rob me of all my achievements, so they started working on becoming immortal. And they expanded their lives by many years, and even some very limited immortality for some of those, the mortuary cult who was looking for immortality. It was immortality, but you still aged, so eventually they turned into these desiccated mummies.
It was immortality light, diet immortality.
Yeah, they weren't gonna die.
Immortality
but
0.
They might wish they were dead.
Immortality new flavorings.
Yeah, new Coke immortality. But yeah, and so, but again, as with all things, rises and falls, ups and downs with their civilization. They were overall pretty prosperous, though. From the outside, it didn't look like much was gonna, really bring them down. Because, obviously, there's orcs everywhere. It's a Warhammer setting. They're going to find orcs. There would be, orc hordes they fight, occasional demons, chaos worshippers, stuff like that they fight and deal with pretty handily.
We have
And then
another dono from Tom Warren here. Thank you, Tom. He puts, the
you.
Warhammer world is just what we
Yeah.
have. Earth at home me.
Thank you.
Oh.
But yeah, Tomb
the-
Kings are...
yeah.
Oh, you
No,
first
go
now.
ahead.
Oh, sorry. Tomb Kings are doing pretty good. And then one certain individual named Nagash was born, and then very rapidly the Tomb Kings
Such is the
stopped
power.
doing very good.
Such is the
Uh-oh.
power of Nagash.
That line is so good.
The most narcissistic person who's ever existed, by the way. I don't think he's not really a Tomb King, but he's just honorary mention at least.
He's pretty involved in
Kind
their
of.
story.
Yeah,
You can't
yeah,
talk
fair
about the
enough,
Tomb
fair
Kings and not mention him, because then you're just skipping what happened that made them the Tomb Kings. He was born the first son of a Tomb King. At this point, they were just Nehekarans. Problem is, Tomb King society is a little bit goofy. The firstborn son goes to the mortuary cult instead of being the king. Nagash did not like this, but because he went to the mortuary cult, he learned how to be a wizard. So he started studying dark magic, started getting a little bit, little bit evil. He was
We should
kinda
mention
always evil.
this is post-death of great conqueror Settra the Imperishable.
Yes,
Well,
etc.
Settra's like the Alexander of the Tomb King, like Alexander the Great of the Tomb Kings, and this is basically, I think it's a couple. It's not explained how long after.
It's a
couple?
long while afterwards.
It's quite
I
a
don't
while
remember the
after, but
exact date,
Settra is like a great, like Settra's got a pyramid and shit, and
Yeah.
basically this is way, centuries down the line. Also, we have
Yeah.
another dono here by Lelouch Rue.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother, again. We appreciate your support as always. He says, "Sorry, I'm late. Here now. What I miss. Love your work. Keep it up." We're just hitting Tomb Kings right now, but Eli did a great lashing of Necron Lords. Obviously, we're going to compare the two more toward the end, but Colin's just directing us through the bone, or the not yet bone daddies.
Soon to be.
He's talking about
All
the most
right, I'm not a
selfish
fan of
person.
I'm not a fan of that poll.
Colin's talking about the most selfish individual.
I didn't do anything.
The scum of the
Nagash.
earth in the Warhammer world, Nagash.
So, Nagash starts learning how to do magic, and then eventually a neighboring city-state to his brings over some dark elves they captured to be used as sacrifices, and Nagash goes, "I'm going to learn magic from them." So he does. He was supposed to sacrifice them. He didn't. He just locked them in the basement of a pyramid. And he gave them a deal. You can either teach me dark magic, or I can kill you here and now. And that's quite the hard bargain, so they agreed. And Nagash became the first human ever to properly wield dark magic. They escaped, and then he killed them, which is pretty impressive, because, elves' whole thing is they're good at the magics, and Nagash was like, yeah, but no, I'm better. So he killed them. And then Nagash killed his brother, who was the king, cucked him, and took his wife. Just really add to the list of reasons he's a piece of shit. Started raising the dead, which in the Hecaran society is a big no-no, because, well, first of all, he was the first necromancer. He invented it. Second of all, death is sacred. You're not supposed to dick with them. And he said, yeah, but free army forever. So he raised the dead to rule his stolen city. He started bankrupting Khemri, the capital of Nehekara, And eventually he was defeated by the 7-nation army of 7 other city-states, was driven out, and came back after, a pretty decent amount of time. And in the meantime, he had accidentally invented vampires because someone stole his research notes and didn't quite get the formula right for eternal life. And with them as his new lieutenants, and of course his ever-loyal servant Arkin the Black, he waged war on Nehekara. And this time, he was going big or going home.
I think
So
he
he-
accidentally turned into a lich as well at this time. For
Yeah, he died, but he decided that was lame, so he just possessed
he
his body
died
again.
but got better,
It was he died but got better.
pretty much.
There was some things Nagash did, but this isn't quite all about Nagash, just the Tomb Kings, so I'm speeding up a little bit past that. As he was invading Nehekara, he was killing everyone. He was poisoning the Great River Vitae, which is, the not Nile. And he was getting ready to cast a spell to kill everyone on the planet and then raise all of their corpses, which he kind of got off. It only killed everyone in Nehekara and raised them up, but that pretty swiftly put an end to, Nehekara. Everyone died,
Yeah.
except
Task
for
failed successfully.
Yeah. except for the last king of all kings of the Tomb Kings, Alcadizar, who, with the help of the Skaven of all people, managed to slay Nagash and send his spirit back to the afterlife for about 5 minutes, because he's a necromancer that doesn't really stick. But as it means for the Tomb Kings, Nagash is gone, and they have to contend with the fact that they're now all undead, which has caused some problems, because it wasn't just the last line of, the existing Nehekarans that was brought back. It was pretty much all of them. Everyone who ever died and still had a reasonably intact skeleton or mummy.
So you'd like to see your granddad, your great granddad, and his
Yeah,
great granddad.
all of them.
Spider-Man memes, like everyone like pointing at each other, just kind of going.
But there's just
"You."
like people going, "Hey, Granddad, put some clothes on. I can see your bones."
Yeah. So it wasn't great, and all of the newly resurrected Tomb Kings started fighting amongst each other until the Hierophant Katep woke up Cetra and said, "Please fix this, because we clearly can't do this on our own." Which he then did, because he's Cetra the Imperishable, and pretty swiftly knocked everyone back into line. And that kind of brings us to the modern day Tomb Kings. They've been like this for quite a few thousand years, to the point that even by the time of Sigmar being born, they had already been Tomb Kings for quite a few years. And then ever since, they've been, honestly, even more fractured than the Necrons. Some of them just want to sit in Nehekara, some of them want to conquer outwards. Some of them don't really care and are just trying to have fun with immortality. Some of them frantically want to get a new body back, be it like just any body they can put their soul into. The mortuary cult did promise Cetra he would return with a new golden body, so some of them are like, "Ooh, that'd be something cool I'd like to get." It's messy in Nehekara, but with Cetra kind of vassalizing everyone, he basically told them, "Look, you can fight amongst yourselves a little bit, but when I call you, it's time to fight." So there is some semblance of order in Nehekara, kind of like with the Silent King, but it's very tenuous, and the moment Cetra isn't looking, it kind of falls apart.
Goes to crap.
To be
Yeah.
honest,
Yeah.
the way you said it's always messy just made me think of a tie-in of "It's Always Sunny in Nekahara." Nagash turns, "I'm just gonna go and conquer, Altdorf." Nagash fails to invade Altdorf.
Cetra likes to have his tools. He likes to bind. He likes
Like
to.
the bang.
I like to buy. I like to have my
It's my
tools.
tools.
God, that's a good episode. Everyone knows a reference there. Oh man, it's always sunny in Nehekara. That's so good. Damn it! I'm so annoyed. I didn't think of that.
And yeah, that's like that's the basics of the the Tomb Kings. That's
Nice.
yeah.
Would it be
And,
fair to say there's like between Nagash and Cetra, there's parallels with, for example, Sarek and Emotech? Because I know the kind of thing is that the Tomb Kings are the origins of like the inspiration for the Necrons. Is there much overlap in that regard?
There's some, like, you can definitely see some parallels, but like with Nagash and Emotech specifically, like, do correct me if I'm wrong, but Imhotep doesn't have this complete and utter disdain for his fellow Necrons. Like, obviously, he doesn't like the Silent King, but he doesn't see it like, another
Mhm.
Necron and is like, you're dirt. Like, is that
Yeah,
roughly in the ballpark?
I think
You know,
so.
Nagash does not care anything about, like, he didn't take power because he wanted to restore order because his dynasty was a shit show. He took power because he's evil, and his motivations kind of end and stop at I'm evil.
Yeah.
Sadly, Nagash is not quite in Total War Warhammer yet, but
With
to
a
be fair,
mod.
quite. Oh, it's not quite.
I know it's not
yet.
official, but that it is.
That's a pretty impressive mod, though.
It's one of those mods that makes you go, why aren't you just working for the company? Why are you doing this for free?
But speaking of lords, though, I do believe quite a few of these Tomb King lords actually you're able to sort of play in the Total War Warhammer franchise at the moment, though.
Indeed.
Sorry, you can keep going. Sorry, you go through it.
Yeah, I would say I'll go through, like, it'll mostly be the legendary lords from Total Warhammer, but a couple different ones. We'll start with Arkan the Black, alphabetical, and he's Nagash's right hand man, so fair to start with him.
Right hand.
I will of course save the
yeah. Bitch.
I will of course save the best for last, so there's a reason I'm not starting with him. Don't worry. Arkan the Black, he was once just kind of a hedonistic scumbag of a nobleman, and just kind of floating through life being a hedonistic scumbag. There's a couple different explanations that have been used for his teeth being black. We'll call him Arkan the Black. One is that his teeth were all rotted and disgusting, and he chewed a root that made them like blackened. He was an unpleasant person to be around when he was alive. He became Nagash's servant and had a bit of a competent, like, everything boost. Like, he went from this scumbag nobody to someone who would probably be, honestly, a pretty clever, like, anti-hero at worst, were it not for the fact that his boss is Nagash, who's really just here to eat your soul and enslave you forever. So if he had a better boss, he might be a lot cooler of a dude.
He just needed someone to believe in him. That's all
Yeah,
he needed.
yeah, someone who isn't Nagash. But yeah, Arkan, he's very clever. He's a very gifted mage, and he died early. He escaped Nagash's first death. He didn't die, but when Nagash was put down the second time, no, pardon me, I got that flipped. I believe he died holding off the armies that would allow Nagash to escape the first time around. He was brought back because Nagash kind of invented necromancy, so that's really not much of a chore for him. And ever since, Arkan has been his right-hand man. As for his role in the Tomb Kings, he's definitely the black sheep of them all. Cetra very begrudgingly allows him to exist, although he regularly goes to war with him whenever Arkan gets a bit too obvious that he's trying to bring back Nagash. And Arkan, for his part, is kind of a mercenary. Like, he'll go around the world looking for, like, things that can help his necromantic powers to bring back Nagash. And in the process, sometimes he works for people you might not expect, like whoever. If the end result will be he's able to get like artifacts of necromantic power, or even can just afford to buy them from somewhere, he's taken some mercenary contracts for other Tomb Kings, occasionally for other factions. He gets around. And of course, he's the only Tomb King, aside from Nagash, that has returned in the Age of Sigmar. So hey, if that interests you, Arkan's still around and kicking. Kind of. Eltharion threw him into the void, so who knows what's going on.
He's a bit lost.
Yeah. He of course had a starring role in the End Times. He killed Warhammer's first ever special character, like ever.
Wow.
Heinrich Kemmler.
Oh, it feels bad.
He's Arkan's a lich.
Yeah, necromantic wizard who he fights Gotrek and Felix one time, I believe.
Yeah, Heinrich Kemmler does, although he promptly leaves before nature can take its course on that front.
Before he gets an axe between the legs or something like that.
Yeah. And during the End Times, he's obviously he's doing all of Nagash's moves that he needs someone important to do. It's even funny when he kills Kemmler, because he's noticed the Lich Master and Arkan's a Lich, and he even, I think, like, makes a snide comment to himself like, the Lich is beating the Lich Master. I'm so fucking clever. He turned into a bit of a sarcastic smart mouth in the End Times for some reason, which is neat. But yeah, that's Arkan. Right hand of Nagash is the most important thing to know about him. Quite powerful, though. Not the kind of guy you want to mess with. Next, I can't keep calling. DJ Katep is what people have called him because he has this like
Yeah.
yeah, he rides like the mount that looks kind of like a DJ table.
Mhm.
He was one of the heads of the mortuary cult, and which means he's a lich of quite good magical power. And his importance in the Tomb Kings comes when he is, decided to wake Setcher up because the infighting was a bit absurd by that point. He's like, I need someone who will fix this. Now, the problem there lies in the fact that the mortuary cult had made a promise that they weren't going to wake Setcher back up until they had found a way to give him his golden body. So he woke Setcher back up, he brought everyone into line, and then he immediately exiled Katep for not having that golden body for him and said he can never return until you give me that body. So Katep kind of just wanders the Warhammer world looking for anything that can help give the Tomb Kings a proper body once again. That's really the extent of what he does. He is the one who returned in the end times to warn Setcher that Nagash was coming back for real this time, whereupon Setcher heard him out, thanked him, and then cut his head off. Because he had
Keeps
still
his
not
word.
he didn't find the golden
Well.
body. Setcher's not one to be trifled with.
I guess so.
Damn, hell of a way to go though. Just like
Yeah.
not really worth it, but worth it.
There's
God.
Khalida, warrior queen, high queen Khalida. She's very cool. She's worshipped the serpent god, because you'll notice there's a lot of parallels between Egyptian mythology and the Tomb Kings. And her cousin was the first vampire, Neferata. And Neferata, Khalida found out Neferata was a vampire and kind of made that known to the Tomb Kings at large before they were the Tomb Kings. And Neferata accidentally killed her in a duel and tried to bring her back, except the snake goddess Asaph poisoned Khalida's blood so she would not become a vampire, and killed her on the spot, which is a weird way to save someone, but it's better than, I guess, eternal damnation from vampirism. And when she came back as a Tomb Queen, she was very honored. She was pretty much the only one Setcher didn't have to beat in the line, because Setcher came back and she was just like, yeah, or whatever. Just let me kill vampires and I'll be content to do whatever you tell me to do. She's one of those, kind of like you were saying earlier, Eli, with like Xandrek being one of the few that has a personality. She and her army is like one of the few that have a particularly standout personality. Like her constructs are some of the only ones that have like a personality, like some of her Tomb Guard or the, what are they called, Ushabti, like kind of play like pranks and stuff. Like they like to just make jokes, and they're fun to be around, or as fun as any Tomb King to be around. And even she meets Gotrek and Felix once and gives them an ultimatum by putting a wrist, like just a bracelet on Felix's wrist, and says, hey, you go kill this vampire that's causing me such problems, and if you make it back to me in time, I will, take the thing off your wrist. Man, that is a big hat.
We forgot to mention Arkan the Black has basically like a massive black Pope hat.
Yeah.
So it kind of looks like if the Lord forbid His Holiness went to war, but then he also was a skeleton.
Yeah. But yeah,
And
with
a goth.
and a goth. With the Gotrek and Felix, they killed the vampire in time, but they didn't quite make it back to Lamia, the city-state she rules in time. And the wrist thing, it happened, but it didn't poison Felix. And so they were confused, like, what? Did you release me? And Neferata's like, no, I was just fucking with you the whole time. And he poisoned that thing had it dried up centuries ago. So she's a bit of a goofball when she wants to be, but she's also incredibly dedicated to hunting vampires, because in her eyes, they're part of the reason they all turned into Tomb Kings. And even beyond that, they're just unholy. And the first one was her cousin. So she's got a lot of personal beef with vampires specifically. There is a couple more minor ones.
Someone said The Mummy Returns. Which, can we just point out how good that film was, the first one
I
at
haven't
least?
seen it.
You don't see the Mummy
I've
Returns?
never seen any of the Mummy movies.
Oh, of course.
Isn't
Colin's
that
never
a
seen a
goofy
damn
movie?
film.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Isn't it a goofy Brandon Fraser movie?
It's not a goofy
It's
Brandon.
not
really
goofy, it's
funny.
good.
It's classic. It's goofy in a good way though. Like it's not.
Alright.
I guess it's not trying to be goofy. It was very serious at the time, but it
It's
just
like
aged.
all the fun moments of like the goofy moments of Indiana Jones, but that's the entire film. And that's
It
what
aged like
makes it fun.
wine though. Those films are pretty good.
Alright,
Honestly, it's a
alright.
childhood vibe, unless you and maybe a bit before your time, to be fair. But
Just
Yeah.
don't watch the Scorpion King because the CGI rock is terrifying.
oh my god, it's still considered the worst CGI in all film history. Because
Oh,
like
making the
It's
chat
be
really
fun,
unhappy.
bad.
God, I remember watching The Mummy, the first one. If you guys watch it now as adults, you'd be like, "Oh, it's not that bad." But the actual Mummy scared the crap out of me when I was like a kid because it looked so horrific. But speaking of
The only
actual
s-
proper mummies, though,
The only scene I've seen is when one of them is like approaching the one guy and he's just pulling out every single religious object.
oh
known to
yeah,
man.
yeah,
And he pulls out a Star of David. And he's like, you speak the language of the slaves. And I'm like, wow. That's
yeah.
a
It's
little on the
fucking-
nose.
By the way, Colin, we've got a donation from Looty McShooty for $5 saying, question for Mr. No Work. Which VTuber would be a good Tomb Lord? My guess would be Pippa, because cringe.
Lumi's the one who likes fantasy, so her. And I will move on from this for the benefit of the 3 other people who are probably sitting here like, shut the up. But thank you, and there's my answer.
Oh, chat, we're
Uh,
sorry we haven't seen The Mummy. Please have mercy.
I'm not.
Localized movie night is a pretty good idea, to be fair, but we probably would get
Mm.
copyright
fun.
strike. We
Immediately.
might do that for like a private members like
Discord
only
thing or
thing,
something,
yeah,
yeah.
Discord thing maybe one time.
There's 2 more I want to mention real quick. There's Apophis, who was a real scumbag. He was a prince who wanted to be the king of the city-state of Numis, but he wasn't gonna get the throne. So what he did was slit the throats of everyone who was going to have the throne, and then just kind of declared himself king.
That'll
Which
do it.
one- that went as well as you'd expect. Like everyone just ganged up on him and
Mhm.
beat him up, and then as execution, they threw him in a pit of it wasn't a pit. He was put in a sarcophagus filled with flesh-eating scarabs, and they closed it on him.
Mm.
And when
Nice.
they opened it back up, the scarabs had all disappeared, and there was just a human skull, which they then inscribed a curse on just for good measure, and threw in the desert.
So
And
this
in
is
the
the plot of the Mummy then, because that does
I-
happen to something
Does it
similar
really?
happens to one guy with
probably
flesh
what the
eating.
inspiration was. There.
Oh, man.
There's
Maybe.
it's not really a spoiler, but like a plot, well, part of the movie, like a
Eh.
flesh-eating scarab it buries into a guy, and you
Oh
see
yeah, and
it,
it's got you can see it going up his wrist.
you
And he's
can-
like,
yeah, you can see
"Ah!"
it moving under his skin, and it's
Yeah.
like, oh,
Interesting. Well, apparently the bracelet story is from The Mummy as well.
Oh,
yeah. Oh, there is
Funny.
that's the Mummy too. There's like a bracelet thing they put on.
someone get the release dates.
The Mummy was after Warhammer Fantasy, I'm pretty sure. I sure hope.
BRB
guy
and
needs
UB.
Mhm.
All right, head on out, brave soldier. But yeah, was it? So then Apophis, he gets to the underworld and would be, denied entrance into the honored halls of, heaven. The best case scenario he had was eternal torment. The worst case scenario was just get his soul erased, like you're gone, goodbye. And he made a deal because he was still technically royalty, and royalty were allowed to make deals with the gods for some reason. With the god of the dead, Usirian. And he said, listen, if I can find a soul that's an exact match for mine, can I go to heaven? And Usirian was like, yeah, sure, that sounds good to me. Go look for that soul. So Apophis is this wandering assassin with a body made out of scarabs that just wanders around looking for an equal soul. But he's never going to find it because no 2 souls are made exactly equal. So he's basically just doomed himself to forever wander the lands as a murder hobo. And,
Nice.
It's not ideal. And then, of course, the last greatest Tomb King, Cetra the Imperishable, and his fullest of titles that, no joke, takes 2 hours straight to say.
Someone in the comment section is gonna be some brave soldier's gonna put the entire thing in the comment
Yeah,
section.
if someone wants to go find the Total War copy pasta and just throw that in, that'd be great.
We'll pin it. It's in
But
there.
But unlike, I would say quite a good deal amount of characters with many titles, this man earned all of them. As a Tomb King, he was the greatest. He, it's better to be feared than loved, but have both. Setcher was smart. He got both. He made sure to treat his people fairly, even the slaves. He built monuments to the gods, brought back their favor to Nehekhara. He did that by sacrificing all of his children in their honor. And if you rebelled against Settra, you were no longer on the map of Nehekhara.
Do I remember correctly that I think isn't Nagash a descendant of Settra? I think in some like distant.
I
Like, 'cause
think it's
he's royalty.
Al-Khadizar, because I think I've read that there was either a son Settra had after he did the first round of filicide, or at one he missed.
Or is Vlad, or who would become Vlad? He was a descendant of Nagash, because that was why he got given sort of special treatment over Neferata. Was like Nagash, like, oh, you're a descendant of mine. Oh, fine, you'll become the leader of the vampires or something at the time.
I don't remember that, but I'm not going to say it didn't happen.
It's hard because like Vlad, that stuff is either like it's in flux. It's not quite, because some things say like he was chosen as like sort of, he was turned into a vampire by Neferata and then made like her consort, and then the other ones it was just Nagash basically chose him as like a leader because he sort of he like defected to their side, and he was basically like, but you're like my descendant, that's kind of cool. And so he is contradictory in some circles, but I do think Nagash was a descendant of Settra in some capacity.
Al-Khadizar was, like, I think, not quite solidly confirmed, but close to it. Like, he had some of Settra's blood in him. I don't remember ever hearing about that from Nagash.
Or just like, is this like the Charlemagne thing where it's like everyone's the descendant of Charlemagne?
It could also be that where it's like, it's so long ago, and plus it's like it gives you some amount of prestige to just go, I come from big cool guy.
Oh, go ahead, Danny. So good.
Whenever anyone mentions Charlemagne, I just think of Christopher Lee because he did a metal album called Charlemagne. He's just like, I killed the blood of Saxon men. I shed the blood of many Saxon men.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's like when people were saying like, I'm in my ancestry I'm a descendant of William the Conqueror. It's like, yeah, most of Europe is, to be fair, as well. So it's not that spell. We're all kind of. I think what's the even weirder one where I found this is way off topic, but someone did it in there's like a channel that did he just showed like descendant histories and things, like like charts and there's maps, and the Queen is a descendant of Muhammad. Which is like, you basically go like, oh, like, so literally everyone's connected to everyone at some point.
Well, yeah, isn't it? It's like you're only 5 steps removed from pretty much anyone on planet Earth if you try and find that.
But Setcha was not 5 steps away from everyone because he was in people's faces as soon as he.
Yeah,
he's a conqueror, man. He was about.
Yeah, and as a Tomb King, he expanded Khemri to its greatest borders. I mean, the dude ended up in Lustria at one point, which, for reference, imagine ancient Egyptians, going to South America. He conquered around.
Well, just a quick thing. They're not called Tomb Kings at this point, are they?
No, I'm calling them Tomb Kings just because
the kingdom of Nehekhara,
at this point,
which is the land.
They're just like Nehekharans. And he, of course, founded the mortuary cult because when he was starting to get a little bit older, he started realizing, I can't punch death in the face. I can't fight that enemy and win. So he needed people to solve that for him. Still went on to do great things, conquer, and he was both feared and loved by his people, because again, he treated them fairly, but if they stepped even an inch out of line, they were beheaded pretty much instantly. And when he finally died, he was angry at it, but he started he bid the mortuary cult to find that damn golden body for him, and started the trend of Nehekharan kings building big old pyramids and taking their entire army with them to be buried alongside them, which means God, Nehekhara must have had a lot of people in it, because that is there's a lot of people going in with them every time.
Jesus.
And yeah, no one would build a pyramid bigger than Settra's because they were that afraid and respectful of the guy. And when Nagash did his, he did the funny and brought all the Tomb Kings back, his was the only pyramid that didn't automatically awaken, for his was given such powerful protective wards that even Nagash couldn't penetrate it. When he rode back out, he just started bitch slapping Tomb Kings and Queens left and right until they started behaving. And he declared that Nehekar would rebuild and the Age of Conquest would begin once again. Because even though he didn't have a golden body, he's back and immortal now in some capacity. So it's time for him to get to work. Some quick fun facts about him. He burned down half of Norska because one of them stole his crown once, and that wasn't going to go unpunished.
And it's quite cold, so burning it down is quite a feat.
Honestly, yeah, it was pretty impressive. It's also, going from Egypt to Scandinavia, so
Yeah.
pretty
It's
impressive.
The fact they have boats is still surprising to me.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose in a way, it's like you don't need winter clothing. You ain't got any skin. Yeah, fair enough.
Not like you're going to freeze. If anything, the ice encasing your bones might be like extra armor. At one point, the High Elves decided to help him out with a demon incursion on his front line, and he was so generous that he allowed them to leave with their lives intact.
So compassionate at times. Such a good man. Or
Every now
bone.
and then, yeah. Truly a great man.
Truly so forgiving.
Every now and then, he likes to try and blow up Nagash's Black Pyramid, both because it's an evil, magical waypoint, and because Nagash built it bigger than his, and that simply cannot be allowed. Doesn't work, but A for effort.
Because it's made of black. We should preface Nagash made this during his mortal lifetime, which was a massive blasphemy, and it's made of a special black stone that just is nigh on. But the black stone / pyramid shenanigans is something we have to keep revisiting because the amount of times it's blown up by Skaven is so funny.
That's later though. That's not quite Tomb
I
King's
know,
lore. That's Nagash.
I
I think
know. Another time.
And he is perhaps the only person in the end times to get a death that doesn't make you angry. Because Nagash, he fought Nagash, who had by this point ascended to godhood, one-on-one, and was doing a pretty good job of it. Eventually, Nagash got the upper hand, told Settra to serve him. Settra screams, "Settra does not serve, Settra rules," which is
The hardest
goes so
line.
hard. And then Nagash blew up all but his skull so he could watch Khemri burn. And then Settra was given something that I don't think any other character was given in any Warhammer setting. A no strings attached offer by the Chaos Gods, who said they would not only give him back his body, but restore him, give him that golden body he wanted so badly. They would give him Nehekar to rule over once again. They would give him everything he ever wanted if they would just serve him. Settra does not serve. Settra rules. So Settra walked all the way from Egypt to Germany, pretended to help Archaon, killed a being the size of a mountain, a dragon ogre, and then, right as he saw Nagash again, he cut off a bloodthirster's head in one swing that was about to get the drop on Nagash, told him he will forgive them until he can kill all 4 of the Chaos Gods himself, and then charged into an infinite tide of demons, like Doom Guy.
Nice.
He's still perhaps one of the absolute coolest characters in all of Warhammer. Just slaps so hard.
And
like,
while,
all of his lore.
obviously the planet blew up and we have Age of Sigmar now, it should be noted, Settra's never once described as dying. So if you'd
Nice.
like, as I do, you can believe that Settra is still out there like Gotrek was in the warp, cutting his way straight to the Chaos Gods.
They just haven't spat him out yet, to be fair.
They wish they could, but you can't get rid of Settra that easily.
He's literally imperishable. He just cannot be put down.
Nope. The Norskin who stole his crown killed him once, except Tomb Kings are immortal. They respawn, which is why he then went right back to Norska and burned down half of it to get his crown back.
That would be pretty scary, like, because you're in the middle of the icy waste, and then it's like, is that an army full of skeletons? Like, yup.
What are they doing there?
We only have one village of, like, full of huts. Yup. They have catapults with skulls flying at us. Yup. That's pretty horrific, though. I think, is that all of the Tomb King lords I think we're going to mention today, Colin?
Pardon me,
Is that all of the Tomb King lords, I think, for today?
that was, if there's anything else you'd like me to talk about, I of course can, but I figured that would, it would be a brief overview of the Tomb Kings and we can go talk about the similarities, because obviously
Yeah.
quite a few.
Yeah, so for the next section, we're going to briefly talk about how, again, you can probably guess the similarities between these two factions is pretty, well, they're basically I'm pretty sure obviously Tomb Kings were around. I don't know what decade they were written, but they've been around in quite early like Warhammer history and Warhammer lore, and even on the tabletop. I mean, fair, at the time was recording, the Tomb Kings have returned, and the old world has returned to tabletop, and the Tomb Kings got a new model, I believe, as well, which I think kind of goes hard.
Lich King on Dragon, I think is so
Yeah.
cool.
Goes pretty hard, and obviously, I think the first thing I was going to mention is particularly that each of these factions had a moment where they kind of turned into undead, because again, they both were living, breathing beings, and the similarity is obviously the fact that it's kind of against their will, a lot of it. I think, like, obviously, that the Necrons went through, basically they walked into the immolation chambers and they emerge outside as the Necrons, and then for the Tomb Kings themselves, I think, I don't know if you might have said it before, Con, there's an interesting like tidbit, which is that when the Necron like death wave magic from Nagash went off, so the people who are still alive in Nehekhara, obviously Nehekhara looked like crap at that point.
Yeah, it was once pretty verdant, but by that point it was becoming more and more desert.
It was like it got Chicago'd.
Indeed.
but essentially the people there, like, there's like a death wave, and then they would have come back to life immediately. So when all the Tomb Kings came back to life, like their descendants, the still living ones, would have had all their flesh still.
But but their like hearts were still and everything. There was no circulation, so over time that it was like the desert winds stripped them of their bones.
Yeah, so it's a pretty like interesting
To their bones, not of their bones.
There's a nice like difference there in a sense, but I think obviously the main thing is that, in a way, I think the difference between these two different parts is that the undead of the Necrons are like fully gone, as in their souls and their stuff has been devoured. And so this might be like more of a personal opinion, but the Necrons compared to Necron Tier, the Necrons are just an imprint of all the information of who that person was in life. That person is very much dead and gone. So like Trazyn, the Necron Tier, is just like full on dead.
It always makes me wonder though, because like blanks, they're born without a soul or a negative soul. It's weird.
Like a negative soul.
Sometimes like it makes me think like in Warhammer 40k at least, the soul is like an organ almost that you can take out. You can still keep going, but obviously not as you once were.
A soul is like Dark Souls; it's a currency.
Yeah.
Remember, there's a weird pivot bit. Do you know about this, Andy, in Dragon Age, where like if the mage goes out of control, they do a process where they basically get rid of their soul almost?
Yeah, they make them tranquil, where they basically completely remove. So they talk like this, and they're alive, but they basically have no personality, because it's better to take away everything that makes them themselves than let them go loose and cause damage and become abominations where they transform. So,
so there's a nice cool like link. If anyone's into Dragon Age, there's a cool link there. I do love Dragon Age, but I think I do like that there's a slight difference in like the Tomb Kings, like their souls are definitely intact, like they've been sort of
at least for
back.
the kings themselves.
I do think, but then again, there's the sort of the big similarity I see as well is when the level of like sentience, like a lot in the lower half soldiers, I think they talk about how like basic soldiers, there's like some glitters of memory of
it's like they still have laborers, for instance, but like they don't really. It's like a half remembered dream. Like they'll just go about making pottery, not because it's for any purpose. It's just what they did in life, and it's the only thing they really have left of them. It's kind of like
there's the big similarity there. Like the Necron warriors are kind of, there's like echoes of their memories in there, but again they're just kind of brain dead, like servants a lot of the time, as well as. But then sort of like the ones who like live like the noble caste, like even Cetra still has part of his body. Like he still has like skin, like it's obviously like decayed and rotted on him, but to show like the level, like the preservation, obviously, of the noble class was way better. Just like how the Necrons, the like Trazyn and all the lords, they've basically retained most of their personalities if they're lucky. But again, like the Necron, so the Tomb Kings, they pretty much have a sort of a similar shtick where like the actual tomb of kings and the lords, they definitely still have like, oh, I remember who I was, but then like Brian over there, you know, I get it does vary from different, I think, kingdoms, doesn't it? Because like you said, like the Khalida's kingdom,
some of them still have like they've got a little bit more life left in them, I guess. Some of them are like a little bit, you know, have a little bit more personality, but obviously, you know, the higher up you go on the totem pole of Tomb Kings, like the kings and the princes are going to have most of their minds intact. I mean, they might have gone insane, but they still have a mind and a soul to be insane with.
Depends on the quality of the Lich Priest.
He also does that, you know, if you got the bargain brand, you know, Lich Priest from Wish who was doing your entombment.
Can you imagine being a lord like, why'd I get the fucking Walmart Lich Priest over here? God, I was trying to buy myself, you know, a new pyramid next to the guns or something section of something in Walmart.
Another similarity is that they're very prone to infighting. You know, there's like the civil wars between the Necron dynasties, and Settra was only woken up because none of the Tomb Kings could get along. The difference there being that pound for pound, I think the Tomb Kings have it worse, because like the Necrons were the ones who were like the already dead Necrons weren't brought to biotransference. It was the ones who were all alive at the time. Yeah. The Tomb Kings, when Nagash, you know, let loose, was all of them. So not only do you have rival dynasties who didn't like each other in life going at it, you have the same dynasty who now has all of its kings once back alive, and they all have a pretty fair claim to the throne because all of them are the king. And it's kind of like, well, I'm the king, I should be in charge. No, I am the king, I should be in charge. And like from a fairness standpoint, it's like, how do you even handle that one?
It'll be like resurrecting all of the kings and queens of England, and then you go, so which one is legit right now?
The king, yeah.
So which one's the king or the queen? You go,
me.
Yeah, they all say that.
Yeah. So it was very messy. Obviously, Necrons are more destructive because, you know, sci-fi, they can blow up planets. But like pound for pound, I think the Tomb Kings had much more vicious infighting. Also, like Tomb Kings are even more resistant to death than Necrons. Like you said earlier, you know, like maybe 1 out of 1 million will have a recall failure and he's gone. The Tomb Kings were so screwed over by Nagash, they just can't die. They will always respawn. To the point that Settra uses the skulls of Tomb Kings who pissed him off as catapult ammunition. That self-replenishes because it'll always just show back up via magic back in the catapult eventually.
Because the Lich Priest can just keep bringing them back, can't
Yeah,
they?
they just
as
go,
long as you have the Lich Priest, who also can resurrect, you can keep bringing them back.
Yeah, and some of them just come back on their own. Like there's a battle site in Nekakara that is 2 rival Tomb King armies that were cursed by the gods. So they just go at it every single day, nonstop. They die and then they come back.
And interesting part as well, they technically had. There's a sort of similarity between like do you think I think it would be really cool if in some like weird universe like Nagash is technically like become a Catan shard in a way in terms of his level of power. I mean, people are probably more powerful than actually no, depending on like scales of power. Like I think of the Deceiver. What's the death one called again? The death
Nightbringer.
The Nightbringer. And then you put Nagash next to them. Like he could blend in quite handily with like that crew. And there's obviously the similarity between the fact of Nagash in the end times eventually like sort of takes control of all of the Tomb Kings, takes them away from Settra. At least he devour. I think he goes into the realm of
he eats the god of the dead.
Eats the god of the dead, nice. And then they can no longer resurrect Tomb Kings. Only Nagash can. So he basically becomes. It sort of mirrors the fact of they were essentially then enslaved to a god who would then use him to go fight another war.
Yeah, except there's no breaking out from Nagash, unfortunately.
Yeah, it just didn't happen.
Yeah, and then Nagash become by Age of Sigmar, he just is an outright god now and of death. So if you die, welcome. Have fun with Nagash.
You die,
Uh,
maybe fighting him, and he's like, "Guess what? I'm your god now." Poke, poke, poke.
Yeah. Another difference is that like the Tomb Kings, the
Thank
Necron
you,
tier
Border
again.
Prince.
Correct me if I missed it. Never had any like psyker stuff amongst them. They were
Never.
always just pure tech. Even when they had souls, it was just no. We got technologies, no
Mhm.
magic.
Well, because they
Uh,
see is it chronomancy? Is like the
They have math
that's their,
magic.
yeah, math.
Yeah, they have
the
ma-
power
like,
of science.
Functionally and like on tabletop especially, it's magic.
Yeah.
Just you can't deny it with a psyker. But it's the Tomb Kings meanwhile did have actual magic. They did eventually have to learn like how to properly use the winds of magic because Nagash cut them off from their gods. Just another thing to add to the list of awful things he's done. Prior to that, their magic was relying on like the gods intercessing on their behalf. Which, fun fact, is a cool reference to the real life fact that only by the grace of God will your Tomb King miniatures stay together.
Oh.
Setra's Mini brings me pain putting that thing
Oh.
together. And
It's a shame 'cause it's so cool.
it's so cool.
Does
but
he
it's
does
like,
he get rules for the tabletop?
I think I was looking up. I think he does actually will be getting rules.
Wow. So
I
he's
don't-
the
I don't
only
think-
guy who gets to stick around. I guess
I-
that's fair.
I think there's like a couple other that might be coming back. I also don't know because the old world just came out,
Hmm.
so they could be adding more. Cetra, I believe, does have rules. You do need to obviously get like
The book.
the book, but I think
Okay.
I did read. I think he's just under 500 points.
Sheesh.
He's Cetra, man. He's worth those points.
Yeah, especially
fair.
he's obviously on a chariot as well, isn't he? So
Yeah, he's so
what's
he
his
can
chariot
run
called
down
again? It's
the Chariot of the Gods.
because
Oh,
it can
nice.
literally ram through formations. Like there's nothing. It basically ignores any
Yeah, you
speed bumps.
you throw Cetra at a block of infantry, and then you forget about that block of infantry because it's probably gone.
Hmm.
My favorite part about Cetra is like his crown, because isn't the crown is so powerful, it blunts magic, doesn't it, or it reflects magic away from him.
Yes.
So
and
when
he,
when Nagash tried to fight him, Nagash is like the most powerful spell that's ever been done, flung at him, and it's like boing,
And then
and
it's
just
just like, "Ooh," and it just
Yeah.
hits
Like,
some random
haha,
bloke. He's
funny
like,
guy in
"What? That's not
chariot."
fair."
Nagash even has a spell that just like on the tabletop that just kills you.
border bridge. Like, Nagash didn't have
Oh.
vision.
Was willing to
Um,
grind.
Listen, okay,
Dude,
poor Nagash is watching Mr. Recreating Ben-Hur, everyone knows the film, in the corner, and the guy's like, "Look at me,
Oh, yeah.
my 4 undead horses."
dude, I'm on your side of Border Prince. The Mortal Realms belong to Nagash. They just haven't figured it out yet. Just haven't got the memo. Such is his power.
Such is the power of Nagash.
Grand
That's
Alliance Death is
statement.
the only valid one, and Chaos, but only if you're playing Skaven.
Mm.
I do hate the
Uh,
fact that Nagash is just. I love to hate him. Nagash is like slightly.
Such a shit.
You know what's really weird though? Nagash is slightly more likable than Erebus.
I'd say he's infinitely more likable than Erebus because Erebus ruined everything in a way that's just like, you're just awful, you suck. Now Nagash did the same thing, but it's fun when he's doing it.
If anyone's read
Wow.
recent, no spoilers right now, but if anyone's read like the End and the Death Volume 3, I hate Erebus even
Oh, this
more.
Erebus comes back.
No, because he
Funny.
kills someone dearly
Mm.
beloved and important at the end, and it's just
Aw.
out of nowhere.
That's right. The beloved character Erda.
No, this is you're gonna hate this. I don't know if you know the spoiler column, but you're gonna hate this one.
Tell me when we're done. I don't wanna.
It makes me honestly, it makes me hate Erebus, which I meant to do though. Yeah, but
but,
I remember making my video on Erebus, and I was just, God, I remember at the end of that going, it's like this guy is so smarmy and like just like, yes, I'm so good. I've done everything right. Like it's just played out so good. And it's just like, yeah, your face is like got carving marks around the edges where Horus took it off.
He's like an amazing
That's-
chef who's made an amazing meal, but the only problem is he's made it out of one of your relatives, and it's just like delicious. Like
Yeah.
that's my nan. Like, oh,
But it tastes
Slightly-
he's
good,
good
doesn't
at what
it?
he does, and it probably tastes good, but I don't want to taste it.
It's what
Ugh.
he does is being awful.
Yeah, I
See,
think
that's.
good. So go on.
Oh, no, you first. You had something.
And I was just saying
relevant,
the
probably.
obvious. I was gonna say like another point. So you wanna finish that?
Oh, I was gonna say like just the last thing with Nagash and Erebus. The difference is when Erebus does it, it's this slimy, weaselly plan to ruin everything. And when Nagash does it, he's just like, 10,000 skeletons. Fuck you. It's like, it's the scale of it. He can be a treacherous weasel, but for the most part, it's like he's a go big or go home kind of
Yeah,
fella.
he's not lying. Nagash is not lying. He'll straight up tell you, "I'm going to murder your entire like civilization."
Yeah, he's
and I'll
honest
feel
about
and I'll
what's
feel
going to happen.
amazing doing it.
He's honest about what's coming, and what's coming is death.
And he's just like, thank you. Yeah, as the Wolverine says, he's just Nagash just Nagashes everywhere. Nagashes over the setting. He gets it. I was gonna say, I'll finish on the last point, which I think is the very obvious link between these two is that they're basically ancient Egypt. If it was not obvious now, just for people who are like listening just on audio, the iconography, the kind of much more the Tomb King. The Tomb Kings are very much like a carbon copy of. If anyone here played Rome Total War, the first one.
The Tomb Kings play like that. Just the Sphinx can come alive and beat someone up.
My favorite part of Rome Total War 1 was that, well, it's not called 1, but just Rome Total War, was that the Egyptians in that were like the the ancient Egyptians, like Bronze Age, but then it was of the what's the start date of Rome 1?
I think it's like 270 BC.
Yeah, because it's just before one of the Carthaginian Wars, one of the
it's right before the Punic Wars started.
Oh, Punic Wars, sorry. I don't
270 BC. I was right.
Yeah, we haven't had any Hannibal of it, have we? In that, yeah, because you start out with just the Rome territory, don't you? God, that's such a good game. I played that so much. God, yeah, that's my. But kind of what you're thinking of. If anyone here, if we can ever find one person who's played, what's it? Total War Troy, not Troy. What's the recent one that came out?
Pharaoh.
Pharaoh, that's it. I love how we all like blanked that. Okay,
man. Such a sad thing.
Yeah, very sad. But the ancient Egypt, even in like the gods as well, both of them, they're kind of very much just obsessed with death, even when they were living. Although the Necrontyr made for different reasons, but I think the obsession of death sort of came from Cetra in a way, didn't it?
He definitely.
They already had gods of death, and they
had gods of death, and they like death was a sacred thing. But with him founding the mortuary cult and getting the possibility of immortality out there, that kicked it into overdrive of like, yeah, we are all about death now, mostly because our leaders really want to avoid it.
Yeah, but there's, to be fair, they kind of did make the Necrons their own thing. Luckily, I think.
Yeah, I think the way I heard it put online once was that the Tomb Kings are ancient Egypt, and the Necrons are the Tomb Kings, but not necessarily just ancient Egypt. Like they copied the Tomb Kings, which copied ancient Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
So the Necrons are like a layer removed from ancient Egypt, but they have more than just ancient Egypt going on. Does that make sense? That's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah. So it's not a carbon copy of it; it's a copy. That's fair. I think that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, and then of course the last great comparison. Cetra's cooler than the Silent King. I'm just gonna say it.
Yeah, it's true.
Silent King's got no lore. Look at him.
But all the fantasy characters are cooler than 40k characters pretty often. I feel like.
Well, to be fair, the rest of the Tomb King, the rest of the Necron roster is kind of cooler than the rest of the Tomb King roster. If you know what I mean, like Khalida, who's the other guy who's not the Hotep? Kotep. Hotep's a different thing entirely. Kotep, I don't think they quite measure up to like Trezin or Imhotep or something like that. I think they kind of hit a bit harder than, again, I think Cetra's, it's hard because Cetra's kind of in his own realm where Cetra also outshines a lot of the other things just because he's pretty much the height of badass in the setting. Like you can't really get higher.
Tomb Kings don't always have to be human though. There's a dwarf Tomb King that everyone thinks is a human that was just so blessed by the gods that the power of their blessing made him short.
People were talking about
Rupesh 7.
People in the chat talking about they liking Erebus. Stop. Just
I'm so angry.
Lawcrum's Total War stream? Possibly. We could do
real Border Prince, real. So real.
Erebus was.
He's a real one for that.
A Border Prince says Erebus was brave enough to reach for glory. Few understood this.
Yeah, but I wish I didn't because his glory sucks.
But Erebus does it because he's self-serving, though. Like Erebus even states in his own things, he thinks he's chosen by the gods, and he basically goes like, "Oh my god, me?" He's like the prom princess. He's like, "Oh my god," and he's kind of doing it for the reward at the end. But the Chaos Gods are definitely gone. You've kind of served your purpose now. Go away. Yeah, so he deserves everything. Him and Nagash deserve everything that's coming to them. I think though, with that being said, we've covered quite a lot today. So
Yep.
I think thank you guys so much for listening, for watching. More of Andy's pictures. I don't know what that meant to be.
That's
That
Zarek
one,
and
though.
Oberon.
For
think-
audio listeners, Andy's drawing some lovely pictures for you all to see. These are the current ones we've had up for the stream. If you are listening as well, I know it's quite late into it, but please do give the video or Spotify link a like as well. It really does help sort of, push out a bit more, and we get to talk about more interesting topics. And if you guys have more topics you want us to cover, we've got quite a few lined up in the future. We've got some more tier list ones. Don't harass us about tier list epic rap battles because it's in the bag. We know it's coming. Okay. With that being said, though, thank you, Eli and Colin, for giving us a huge amount of loyalty there, and quite a lot. And we'll catch you guys all in the next one. Peace.
Bye,
Thank you
everyone.
guys.
Take
Bye.
care.
Love you.
See you next week.